Welcome to the Hawks Nest live stream show. My name is Brandon Kane, and I do thank you for tuning on in today as we've got ourselves one of those very interesting days on the NFL calendar. It used to be when you came to Cutdown through the training camp period, it was a three-phase process, a little trickling, if you were, as far as the players that would go out onto the open market. Well, now, after the NFL changed the rule a couple of years ago, it is all at once. All of the cuts come on that final cut down day. Thousands of guys out across the league that are now out on the streets, out of a job. So not only is it an interesting day from my perspective on the guys that you let go and how you're trying to construct your roster, but also the guys that could be out there available on the open market from teams who, maybe they're being released because of salary. Maybe they're being released because there's a really good young player out there that's overtaken them on the depth chart, and they don't want to carry the salary if it's a little bit extra because you're going to be a second string guy. And so there are sometimes some quality guys you can go out there and find out in the market at this point, especially considering it's all at once and everybody's kind of picking through these guys and trying to find something that can help their team out here at the end of things. So we were going to be taking a look today at who the Seattle Seahawks have cut, what the final roster is looking like, and final with quotation marks on either side of it, by the way, because final is not necessarily that this thing is not going to be changed in even the next week and a half until we get up to the football game. But we'll get a basic idea of where the team stands, who really impressed in training camp, who they didn't think they could let get to the practice squad because they might have gotten plucked. So we'll go through all this start to finish on that today. We'll be looking across the league just a little bit as well as any interesting players that are out there, any trades that go down. We'll be kind of charting all here for the next couple of hours, getting a good idea of where our Seattle Seahawks are at. I thank you guys for watching today. If you can, for me when you're walking in the door, just do me that little itty-bitty favor and hit that like button, as it does help. It does help me out tremendously by you doing that, of course, and I really do appreciate it. So let's go through, if we can, the first couple of cuts here to begin things. As my deals haven't been an issue here. What's going on now? What's going on now? Okay. All right. So the first bit of news that I want to cover before we get to the cuts is that we did actually have a trade, as is mentioned here in the chat below. And this is an interesting trade at that. As the Seattle Seahawks have moved former 7th round pick Mike Jerrell, your swing tackle, was played a little bit of right tackle last year. He's played some left tackle. He's shown some ability, a guy that came from Findlay College, who you liked a lot because he was a guy that could have gone to other bigger colleges, but kind of remained loyal to the program there because they took a shot on him. A guy with some decent talent. I thought he played decently in this preseason period. He didn't necessarily dominate or whatnot. But the Falcons are going to look to make a move here for Jerrell. And funny enough, Jerrell was a guy who really had his best year last year in that Atlanta Falcon game. So he gave him a close-up view of his ability. This would be for a conditional 7th round pick. I'd estimate that would be that he has to be on the roster for a certain set amount of time for you to get the draft capital compensation there. But the Seahawks, obviously understanding that Jerrell was not going to make it to the practice squad at that point, getting something for him as they possibly could. And interesting as well, speaking to about a couple things with this one. Number one, the depth. So Josh Jones has really, really been a solid addition. He seems well acquainted to be able to play left tackle or right tackle. No issues on either side on that. And a guy that I feel like they have a lot of confidence to be first guy off the bench on either of those two tackle positions. But they must also feel good about Richmond or what they've got going on there behind the scenes. And then also, you got to feel pretty good about Abraham Lucas's health with that knee, that you're also being willing to kind of dial this down kind of thin as far as your tackle position is concerned, considering this trade. So this was a bit of a strange one to see coming. Didn't expect it. I'd expect to see how I was going to stick solidly with the 4 that they had there at the tackle position and kind of call it a day. But it does kind of give you a little bit of an insight on the team in certain respects here, and very, very cool to see. Very cool to see on that side of it. Let's go through some of the cuts. We do have some surprise ones going down here, so let's take a look at what we've got so far, and we should have the active roster coming out here any second to be able to supply you guys with that as well. So we've got our cuts today as they go down. Of course, the Jerrell trade, first thing out the books. Demarion Williams also being moved. Not a surprise from my perspective on that one, as you kind of knew who your corners were going to be on the roster. Demarion had a really good preseason, though. It wouldn't surprise me if he does get back onto the practice squad here before it's all said and done. little bit of not a surprise from my standpoint, but a surprise for some of you out there. Damian Martinez was also let go here. So he's been let go. I had him as be another guy who was going to be probably likely to be cut. Third-year safety, Jarek Reed's been cut. That was a guy I thought was going to maybe make the roster with him and Okada kind of ducking it out, but I could have seen it going either way. And so he goes probably potentially back onto the practice squad. We'll see what that. Isis Waxter also was waived, undrafted UDFA that they signed this offseason. Bubba Thomas let go, no shocker there. Chris Stoll looks like he's on track for week 1, so they have moved Zach Triner. Patrick O'Connell, another one that was a little bit of a surprise here, has been waived. I thought he had a really good preseason. This is another one, much like the Lucas to Jerrell situation. I think you can read into this one a little bit with the O'Connell to Tyrese Knight situation, being that the team probably feels pretty good about Knight's health and where he's coming. They like Josh Ross a little bit, maybe more. We haven't heard about him being waived yet, so maybe that's a guy that makes the roster, even though he didn't play in preseason. Mike McDonald's got a lot of familiarity with him and maybe looks at it as a situation where I know what I'm getting in this guy, and I like that just a little bit more. But I thought O'Connell played solidly for you. Then we got one of our real big surprises here of the day as far as releases are concerned. Marquez Valdes-Scantling has been let go, released by the team. They tried to move him in a trade. Just doesn't seem like that there was any suitors out there that were willing or wanting. You save about $1 million here. There is a little bit of offset language on this deal where you have your initial savings, and then there'll be a little bit of tiny extra maybe savings on top of that if he signs or where he signs somewhere else. But just didn't do enough, / you felt so good about what you got from Torrey Horton here in this preseason period. That was enough to kind of upend things here, I think, as far as it stands, as well as Derek Young. I think both those two guys end up making this roster. We'll see in a second or two, but I think it makes a lot of sense on this because it comes back down to Marquez. He wasn't going to supply any special teams value. That was the real bottom line, and the other guys do, and you need that special teams value right now. It's the bottom line. We got Tyreek Smith also being moved. He's being waived. And so no surprise there, as he probably has a good chance of getting back on the practice squad too. Keydrain Callaghan has been waived as well. And then Seahawks 7th rounder Ricky White has been let go as well. Probably, again, another guy that they're going to potentially take a look at the practice squad, but we're just going to have to see here the way that breaks down. We'll keep tracking this here throughout the day on this side of it, trying to see what's going on, what's what. Again, we're going to get the, in fact, I might already have it here, just waiting for the final 53-man roster to come down the line here. So as soon as we've got that on there, I will hook you guys up and let you know on that. So we got a kitty view. Okay, kitty. Okay, come on. There we go. Up there. There we go. There we go. There we go. Let's see how you guys are doing today. Let me check my people here. HHG, Joe, Goomba Garth, Mick. How you guys doing? Adam? Hello. Not a surprise, Adam, on O'Connell. A little surprise on O'Connell, but not a surprise on Martinez, that's for sure. Rockman Drums, how you doing? It's good to see you, brother. Hope you're doing well. HHG, watch MVS go to the Niners? He might. They need the help. Flying Blind, how you doing? Hope you're doing well out there. Good to see you, brother. Addison, MVS, cut. Yeah. Too bad, so sad. Flying Blind says, season's officially starting now. Let's go. We are now officially inside 2 weeks here to that first game. Woo, I can taste it. Quinn, yeah, Jerrell was the one that caught me off guard too. Did not see this one coming, and this is a big surprise, even more so than Scantling being cut. Just because you thought the team was going to be a little bit concerned with the depth there and wanting to keep what they kind of have. Kieran says, hey, Jerrell's our Sam Howell. There we go. Flying Blind, it should be a rule that you like the video before talking in the chat. I agree, man. I like that rule. That should be the rule. I wish I could set that up in place. It's a great suggestion. If they had that as an option, I'd do it. Brian Myers, how you doing? Greetings from Uig, Scotland. It says Brian's out in Scotland. All right, let's go. Kyle from South Park, thanks for the $5. Says, please bring up the right tackle that Lenore has been talking so much about. Walker and JSN just to get trucked. Oh, please bring up the RT. Lenore has been talking so much about Walker and JSN just to get trucked by Genty in the preseason. Yeah, Lenore is a guy that they call the hyena because because he's so But it's kind of funny because with a hyena, of course, the whole thing with that animal is that it sounds like it's laughing, but it's not really laughing. So it sounds like it's doing something, but it's not really doing something. So likewise, Kyle, I'd say when it comes to Demondre Lenore, he's doing a lot of yippity yapping with these players, but you ain't doing a lot on the football field. And he's a guy that has overinflated his ability as a corner and what he is as a corner. And Jesse was bringing this up on the last roundtable show, which will be live tonight at 6:00 on the roundtable. As I've got a B-2 bomber going ahead of me here. That's the sound you hear over the head, and that's that. They're going to try to move him a little bit more to the outside this year, Kyle. And he's a slot. He's a slot guy. That's where he lives. Slot king. That's where he's going to be at. He doesn't really play outside. He's not really built to play outside, in my opinion. You put him out there, you're going to get him a little bit more exposed. But the Niners are doing it because they lost Jadarius Ward. It's a need out there. You don't have a lot of other guys depth-wise you feel good about on that side of it. But it was very cool last year, Kyle, when Walker was able to flip him mid-game, just took him and flipped him like it was a UFC move. And I think that when I've heard Lenore talk about him and he goes about it, like, he's bald. He's a bald guy. Like, it's such a lame, way to go at somebody. Like, ooh, they're bald. Like, he shaved his head. So it's a pretty common look. But he's a lot of talk and not a lot of play behind it, in my opinion, with him. And hopefully he lights a fire under Walker and JSN when they play him and they get after it. It just adds to the rivalry when you got some of that, feistiness going back and forth on either side of it. But yeah, he's like the hyena that laughs. It's not laughing. He's doing a lot of talk and it ain't meaning a whole lot. He's not the kind of guy that actually can go out there and back it up. So he'll talk, but he's one of those guys that talks, then gets proven wrong and then just keeps talking. It's like, dude, you've been proven wrong like 3 or 4 times. Why are you still yapping here? But it was cool to watch him get bouncy castled to the ground by Ashton Genty, Kyle, with the run Genty had too. Again, showing a little bit of why you want that guy outside coming in. You want him more from the slot, kind of operating in the he's got to come up and rally to tackle like that out in space. A little bit more problematic with him. He's not the biggest dude on the football field, but yeah, strange at how especially with Walker and JSN, he's definitely just going at them just. And if you're good enough to do it, then great. If you're a dominant player, then good for you. But if you aren't a dominant player, it's kind of like a silly look. Like, what are you doing? You're fine. You're not that guy, dude. You're not him, man. Wait, what's that meme, Kyle? You're not that guy, man. Okay? You're not that guy. I got to get that from my soundboard. You're not that dude. Okay, guy? You're not that guy. But thank you, Kyle. I appreciate the $5. Hope you're having a good day, brother. Demondre Lenore. See if we got anything here. I'm going to keep hitting refresh on this sucker. I'm going to keep refreshing this sucker till I know what's up. See how this thing goes. I remember last year they were a little bit hesitant on getting the list activated as well. So we'll probably have to wait a few minutes on this thing. Brian says Jerrell had potential, but at times he was a turnstile last year. He had some up and down play. He was a rookie too. So, you kind of expect that, I think, a little bit with rookies. I thought he showed a little bit of something. Seth, any news on Dalton Risner? No news yet. Nothing updated on that one. Brian says Arroyo's versatility may have had something to do with MBS's release. It's true. I mean, that's possibly very true. If he's eating any kind of snaps on the outside, it certainly makes a lot more sense. And that's something the team's told you that they've had an intention with Arroyo to use him in this way as kind of an X receiver at times out there as a big receiver. So we'll see if that's a bit of their thinking here. It definitely could add up on that one, Brian. Century Seahawk rooting for Tyreek to get on the team. Wish the best for all the cuts. It'd be cool to see. There's some good edges here. They're going to kind of all be, I think, duking it out for what might just be one edge role on the practice squad. You got your O'Tools and you got Ivy, depending on if he makes it or not. Tyreek in there. And Tyreek with some really good first step quickness. He looked pretty good in preseason here. Jerrell House, so Cable Do safe? Potentially. Definitely aren't releasing him yet. So some of these just come out like a trickle, though. Jerrell House, where it's not always just, fast and furious. It's just that little one here, one there. Was the safety with the pick? Jeff asked if they only cut down to 70. No, they go down to 53 today. It's all the way. It used to be that way where it was more of a stages thing, but now it's just, Jeff, they go. You're thinking right, Jeff. You're just thinking of what it was like 3 years ago. And that's how it had been for most of our lifetime, where it was the phases thing. Calm Cal, I'm sure he knows K9's bald. He got a close-up look as he was getting flipped. Misfits says Ashton Genty's a hero for destroying Lenore. Oh, it was a pop too. What's up, David? How you doing, man? We'll probably hear about the practice squad too, Quinn, throughout the day, where it'll be the same kind of trickle thing where this guy was added, that guy was added. Kind of one of those deals, I would estimate. Seahawks gaming, the Niners are going to run every play week one. DeMarcus Robinson suspended. Jacob Cowling, IR. Ayuk is on IR. No Debo. Seahawks gaming, throw on Juwan Jennings onto that as well. He is still not practiced. He's still not practiced. He don't practice it good at all. And I can't talk. But you also have got Juwan Jennings out there as well. Another part where, is he going to be ready for week one? Having had no training camp, is he going to try to hold in? There's always Niner drama in there floating around. Do you have a graphic for the cuts? I don't have a graphic, but I have this. I can show you where we're at with our current update here. I'll keep this up here so you guys can kind of see. It's a good idea. A little bit smaller, so it's not so crazy on it. But here's the cuts here to my left shoulder that we've heard about so far. Kyle, thank you for another $5 donation, man. I appreciate that support. Really kind of you, brother. He says, is it me or do players that go to Pitt age 10 years? Ramsey, Slade, DK, Rogers all look like they're mid-40s and 50s. Lenore from San Francisco, aged also. Yeah, I mean, they definitely, I think part of it might be a little bit with Pittsburgh is that you sometimes, at least recently, just think of them as a very aging roster. And you got Cam Hayward there and Watt there, and you bring on these other guys that are also have been in the league for a while. And Rodgers, one of the oldest quarterbacks in the book. And it does lead you a little bit into feeling, I think, almost like they're almost even a little older than they probably really fully are. But again, they've brought on a very aging roster here. For whatever reason, that's been their mode this offseason, which is not often really the approach that teams tend to want to take. How can we get older? How can we get older across the board? How can we get an older secondary? How do we make that happen? Doesn't tend to be like, you don't hear a lot of teams, Kyle, at the end of the year go, wow, that old ass secondary sure did carry us through this year. It's more like that old ass secondary got us bit in the ass. And yeah, DK's got a little bit of that. I mean, he's got kind of that fate where he's going to look older. He looked 33 a little bit to me when he was 21. So, he just kind of has that just older look to him a little bit. But they're leaning into it with this roster and how they're rolling with it, Kyle. I mean, they flick out Minka basically for Jalen in a lot of ways. I know they play different positions, but since you go a little bit older, we'll see if it works out. I mean, if it does, it's a whole new method to building your team, I guess, if this is going to be their approach and how they do it. But some of it just seems to be so scrambly and reactive and without much thought as to why they're doing what they're doing with this. Being that, where's the foresight on this plan? Is this you just trying to be like, well, we haven't gotten it done in the last couple of years, so we got to go get this done now. What is it going to take? Well, everything just for this year, whatever. Who cares about the next couple of years? Just get this done now. You go, okay. It's weird. I can see almost they're different teams and different stuff going on with them a little bit, but I can see some definite almost kind of echoes to a little bit of the Bengals situation in that same division, or it doesn't feel like two teams that are really doing things with a 2 and a 3 year plan. It just kind of feels like year in and year out, they're just being very reactive to what's going on in front of them, which then leads them to just doing a bunch of scramble moves. And you just don't feel like that's going to really work out for that team, or either team on that. And you got to give Bengals props. They found a way to get all those contracts done. They finally got Jamar in the house. They got the reworked Trey Hendrickson deal done, though it does sound like it's going to force them. It does sound like it's going to force them to let him go in free agency next year. Sounds like Jamie Sharif has also just been waived by your Seattle Seahawks. So another guy let go here by Seattle. A little bit of surprise. That was one of the guys I was thinking maybe could have made the roster. People are funny with the Twitter engagement stuff. It's like I see two different people have posted. The Seahawks have plans to play multiple plays in their game plan featuring rookie Jalen Milroe. Yeah, they've been telling us that since they drafted him. Where's the surprise in that? Where's the shocker in that? Oh, RT Roundtable. Sorry, Kyle. I was like, what is this? I will try to bring that up. The fun part too, Kyle, is then because Jesse let it slip last week about some of his worries in regards to Lenore playing to the outside. So I'll probably just lean on him with that. Like, he's talking all this trash. He's playing outside corner. How's that going to work, buddy? How's that going to How's that going to float? Great suggestion. I'll try to bring that up tonight. I know Jesse's not feeling, the vibes are not immaculate coming out of San Francisco. I will say that. Adam Baum, Green Bay released Isaiah Simmons. He's one of those ones that's definitely caught up in my on the channel here amongst the community as being one of those guys they sort of think about a lot over the last just 2 years here with Mike McDonald, because he is kind of that piece you can move all over the place, and no team's been able to quite solve him or figure him out. I'd probably offer at this point, once you get through team like 9, you're probably not going to be solved. But he always still does tempt with that incredible talent he had coming out of Clemson. Thrill House, I wonder if Jamal Adams made the Raiders. I'd have to think he does. I really do. He played seemingly pretty good in preseason, and it's not like that Raiders team, Thrill House, has a plethora of off-ball linebackers ready to roll. Key Calhoun, are there any names across the league cuts you'd be more interested in than probable practice squad as of now? I haven't seen anybody that's been released off that stands out to me in a major way. I'm looking a little bit key for the interior offensive lineman to see if there's something that sort of shakes loose in on that. And I haven't so far with that. Some of this is going to be a little bit of the fact that you have built a pretty strong roster and you feel pretty good about most of the positions and where you're at, from wide receiver to tight end to quarterback and potentially even cornerback where you're at, the safety position. So some of this comes down to more of two key, less than maybe there aren't some decent guys that get released here. And I haven't seen anything so far yet, but it will be a little bit more to the fact that I think we've got just the stronger roster in certain positional groups than we've had in recent years, which will just make us less interested. But nothing's come down yet that I've seen. It's guys that you're kind of nodding your head to going, yeah, that guy should be cut. Yeah, that guy's not. That guy's not a lot there. But it's early too. We'll get the final lists out here. And that's the other part of that is the names that come out early key are the easy cuts. It's those late cuts and the late roster ones that are the more intriguing ones too, which we should start to get a little bit more information on here soon with that. Let me pull this down. Josh, I don't see the speed from Arroyo to seriously play X and expect targets. Yeah, maybe not. Team did say they see him as an X when they drafted him. So We'll see there. So that says Jamal is going to be the starting linebacker and get injured week 1. It's very possible. Throw out some room for the 450-pound Buccaneer kid. I'm kind of him. I mean, I'm more in the place of like, lose the weight, man. You know, when we grew up, there used to be this thing when I was in the 80s and 90s. They were like, well, you're just big boned. You just big bones. Can't help it. Just can't help it. She's a big boy, big girl. What are they going to do? But it's like, nah, you get to 450, you've earned your way up to that mark of things, and you're a professional athlete. Like, lose the weight. Stop eating. You know? They got him out there like walking on the field throughout training camp. It's like, dude, come on. Calm Cal, what would you rank on how much you think we will beat the Niners from a 1 to 10? 10 being easy, 1 is a crushing defeat, 5 is a tie game. Good question. 7.5 would be about right where I'd be at, Calm Cal. I feel pretty confident right now walking into it. I think that the Niners are nowhere near as strong. If they had the roster at full strength, they wouldn't be as good a roster, I think, as they've been the past couple of years to start the year out, number one. Number two, then you have the injuries on top of that. You have a wide receiver room that's decimated. You have a running back room that's been leaned down to the point that Brian Robinson's probably getting significant snaps into game 1. They've got other positions where there's questions about depth, from safety to cornerback, new starting off-ball linebacker there with D. Winters, and if he's going to make that role and be able to operate in that role and be good, just as good as Dre Greenlaw was when he was going out there, the defensive line starting 3 rookies at once, basically. At least 3 rookies that are going to get starter-like snaps. I look at that across the board, and that puts me pretty hard into the 7-5 kind of range of things, and maybe even gets up into 8, Calm Cal, by the time we get in the lead-in next week. Kyle says, tonight at the roundtable, Jesse will be saying Stafford looks like an MVP. Jesse still believes the Niners are a playoff team, and poor Mike in the corner with the Cardinals. Poor Mike in the corner with the Cardinals. I might steal that one, Kyle. It is. It's just like, then there's the Cardinals. William says, how about Chad Muem? Muem, the one Jaguars released? I don't know too much about Chad Muem. Sorry, man. Chad Muem. Linebacker. Well, he looks thin. He's 6'3", though, so always when the linebackers like 6'3", they always look a little thin. Could be interesting. Former 3rd-round pick in 2022 draft. Is he two-time first-team All-Mountain West linebacker? Chad Muma, that's what it was. That's what was throwing me off. Yeah, I know Chad Muma then, right? Yeah. You put the Muam. I was like, Muam? Yeah, Muma maybe is a guy they look at. You're definitely looking now where there's going to be guys out there that you may like a little bit more. Mike's had a little bit more familiarity with some of these guys. Wu-Tang says DK got that LeBron face where he looked 30 in high school. Exactly. It's just the way it is for some folks, you know? You can have those baby face folks too that look still like they're a 20-year-old kid at 35. Space says, did you see the video of Gino arguing with a fan or coach? That's why they pay me the big bucks. He was on some field with kids that he was working at and got into it a little bit. And yeah, it wasn't one of the things that like threw me off of Gino and I'm like anti-Gino because I saw it. But there's a little bit of a wondering that I have with Geno Smith at times on some of the emotionality that can kind of go out of control. And if that at times does best suit for the quarterback position to have a bit of that, willingness to kind of go off the edge a bit at times. You want your guy feisty. You want your guy competitive. You want your guy, sort of don't take nothing from nobody kind of attitude a little bit in that way. But can you go a little too far? Is there a little bit of an even keel nature to the quarterback position that you want to stay within at all times? And I think with Gino, we had a couple of moments there with him where just he does kind of go off not fully off the deep end, but he goes partially a little bit and gets a little bit out of control in that. And It's just kind of what you get with him a bit. It's not, again, not a horrific, horrible thing and doesn't hold him back tremendously as a player, but you do wonder if it holds him back just a little bit when it comes to certain things like leadership and whatnot. AI says Pittsburgh's going to regret that DK trade. I think that they are as well. It wasn't a fit place for DK, in my opinion, from where he should have gone to that type of team. It seemed almost kind of to my standpoint, DK was almost less worried about, I know he said, I want to go to quarterback and I want to go to winner and I want to go to this. But like he ended up choosing and going to a team in Pittsburgh that was none of those things really. I think it just came down to he wanted to get paid and paid very early on this offseason. That based on what John Schneider said, he had already been waiting quite a bit of time to get paid. That he wanted to essentially have that extension by like last year and hadn't. So it just seemed that it was more kind of driven by that being the way he wanted to roll with it. More power to him on that, but I agree with you. I don't know if it's going to work out best for either side of that when it's all said and done. Addison says, here lies our linebacker depth. Rest in peace. Jeff says, Geno may not be who we thought he was. Yeah, I think he's a good player, and I think he is at times a good leader, but there's an unshakableness a little bit to being the quarterback and being the leader of the team, especially, that I think sometimes you need to apply. It doesn't mean you don't get emotional. It doesn't mean that there's some times that you are going to go off half-cocked, maybe even a little bit. But you've got to be very precise in when you're going to do those things versus just kind of being whenever the wind blows you a certain direction, you're going to go there. And again, I don't want to overstate this with Geno. But Thomas, I have to tip the hat to Cal Raleigh for hitting 50 home runs. I never thought anyone Mariner-wise would catch Griffey, and still in August. It's been an unbelievable season and one that you really would not have thought you were going to get from Cal. He's never hit up to this close of amount of home runs in 1 year. This is what baseball is, though. Young players develop and get stronger and get better. And it's been a wild season. The 50 that he hit yesterday, just where he put the thing up like upper deck, both sides of the plate, doing it as a catcher. It's been just an amazing story, an amazing season. And like you say, he's at 50 already, and you're still at August 26th. You got a whole month of games to play. I was trying to track a little bit of where Barry Bonds is at, and he's only a couple off Barry Bonds' pace. Though, of course, with Bonds, he just went, bananas at the end of the year. He was just hitting home runs like every other day into September, so he really extended it out. But yeah, very, very, very cool of Cal. Props to Cal for getting it done. Thomas says, dude, they said they plan on making plays for Miller when they drafted him. I know, there's I'm looking at my X feed as I'm looking for the update on the roster, and as I'm looking through it all, I've got all these people going, Seahawks announced they're going to use him as a weapon. Yeah, they've been saying this for months. What are we doing here? So a little bit of an interesting thing here as well with the situation on Mike Jerrell and that being a conditional 7th round pick. Caleb McGarry, the blindside protector for Michael Penix, because of course he plays right tackle and Michael Penix is a left-handed quarterback, will miss the entire season. So Falcons, why did you give the Rams that 1st round pick? Why did you do that? Why did you do that? So now Michael Jerrell very well might be the blindside protector for the majority of this season for Michael Penix. And Michael Penix with his injury history. And remembering the Rams have the 1st round pick of the Falcons next year. Oh. I think I hate the Falcons forever. Y'all probably tired of me complaining about it, but you ain't gonna be tired of me complaining about it when you watch them get arch after this year. You guys are gonna feel my pain. You will feel my pain. Karen says, what's the over-under on how many games does Stafford last this year? I kind of feel like it's like an all or nothing thing. It's like he either goes like 3 games and then just goes, I can't make it work with this back, or he plays all 17. I don't think you'll get like an 8 game, 10 game. He's 10 games. And if he's toughened it out through 10, he'll toughen it out through 7. But likewise, if there's something in there that's clicking and ripping and pulling and, on that side of it. And he's just like, it's too much. I can't, because that's the thing with backs is that it's a tough thing where everybody talks about the toughness of Stafford. He's so tough. He's the toughest quarterback that's ever played this sport. There's not a tougher NFL player in the history of time than Matthew Stafford. You get him talking about him like this, but if anybody's had a back injury knows it's really not about toughness, especially if it's hitting a certain way. You do a motion and you go, I'm going to be tough through this motion. I'm going to just be tough through the motion, tough through the motion. And you get here and your back gives you a big middle finger. He goes, ah, 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 ah. It's a little bit of that. A little bit of that when you're doing it. So Stafford might be tough as a $2 steak, but my man, if that's clicking like that and you're back in that way, your body just says no. It says you can try to throw, but every time you're going to throw, you're going to feel that little catch there as you're doing it. Every little time. And that's not just a toughness thing. It's like you can't get around that. It's like having your knee hit when you're in the doctor's office to check your reflexes. Like try to not move your knee. It's like, good luck. So we'll see on that. We'll see on that, Kieran, but I'm definitely think it's a worrisome that it's already popping up now before he's taking hits. You got to be a little concerned if you're the Rams, even though they're playing it all like, no, it's no problem. Addison says, funny how Jamal was suddenly willing to change to linebacker once he moved to Vegas. He refused to make that same position here in Seattle. I think it's a year of humble pie that you have to eat and eventually eat that whole pie. And then you go, okay, what do you want to do? Do you want to never play football again? Or you want to go be a linebacker? Whereas I think when we let him go at the time, he was probably thinking that he was still going to get his opportunities as a safety somewhere, that there would be a team that would be willing to do that. So it's a bit of a miscalculation on his part. Maybe as well, part of what he's thinking is if I got to play linebacker, I'm going to go do it in a fun city like Vegas, not Seattle. Maybe there's a little bit of that, at play too here, Addison, but probably took a little bit of that year of him having the kind of the come to Jesus aspect of this, where he realized what was what. Thomas says, Griffey, in my mind, is the greatest Mariner of all time, so Raleigh needs a long time, but his fourth year hitting 50 home runs, and he is a switch hitter. Agreed. I stand on that place too. Griffey is one of my guys like Largent, kind of an all-time athlete for me, that will always be in a certain revered place in my mind that almost can't ever be overtaken. But Cal's having a hell of a start, that's for sure. Super Zeke the Freak says, letting Marquez Valdes-Scantling go was a huge mistake. MVS could have been traded with. They tried to move him. Reports are they tried to move him, and it just didn't, no takers out there. So maybe Marquez just doesn't have the greatest of opinions out there league-wide as far as his skill set goes. Tom Cow says, damn, Falcons lost Caleb McGarry. You think Jerrell may be the starter? Yes. Yeah. I hate when I see a train coming down the tracks like 10 miles away and you know it's coming. These are the ones I hate prognostication wise, where I just have a sense like, ooh, that's not going to be good. I can't even fully flesh out why this is fully not going to be good right now in the moment, but this is just not going to be good. And the second the Falcons moved that first round pick to the Rams and they went all in on the 2025 season with it, I went, oh no. Oh no, not like this. Don't do that. Don't do that. They did it. And now you have a brittle Michael Penix with the blindside protector being a 7th round pick from last year that the Falcons are probably going to lean heavily upon. Yeah. Gibson 95 was a hell of a season for the Mariners. What a magical year that was. Super Zeke the Freak. Sorry, Zeke says the only other Z receiver we have on the entire team is Horton, who also happens to be the only X besides Young. You're going to be playing Cooper Kupp at quite a bit of Z. You're going to be playing a good amount of JSN at Z. So I would say those guys are going to eat up when we get to the end of the season here, Zeke, I think you're going to find that your Z receiver is going to be a high majority of those snaps are going to be eaten up by the combination of JSN and Cooper Kupp. Now, I know those guys also are maybe at their best as a slot, but I know at least in Kupp's case, he spent a lot of his career running more 50-50 between slot and Z outside. I think the team also looks a little bit like whether he can do it or not. We'll see on the Zeke. I'm not saying I believe he can do it, but you also have the potential of Arroyo being able to play some X out there, especially maybe down by the goal line and whatnot. HHG, thank you for the $2 donation. Says, OU for the Swift marriage. Oh, yeah, we've got the, how about Kelsey and Taylor Swift decided today to announce their marriage announcement. Ugh. I kind of thought I was kind of hoping this whole thing was just a put together ploy thing for PR and that we were eventually going to be able to get to finally this year where it gets broken up and now we're done with the story and we don't have to do any more talking about Swift in the NFL. But alas, it seems that this saga will not end. I could do without it. I really could. I don't know about you guys, but I'm kind of good on that story. I've heard enough. Checking to see if we got any updates here. Looks like they're going to do the slow release thing here today, which understandable. It's the way they do it. No updates yet there, though. Kyle says Swift's divorce album is going to be the #1 selling album ever. Oh, it will. You're just sitting there like, what rhymes with Chiefs? What rhymes with Travie? I'm a baddie. You can't have this. You're going to be Maddie. I'm writing it right now. Gibson sweeping the Cards and splitting with the San Francisco and the Rams would be good. I believe that I had us in my preseason prognostication as we sweep the Cardinals, to your point. I had us sweeping the Niners, and then I had us getting swept by the Rams. But that's how the final record's the same place you're at, Gibson, where I'm standing with it. So you got Jamie Sharif here added on to this list of cuts as we keep rolling on through this. So we're getting a little bit by bit, we're getting a bit more. Yeah, they've Zeke, they've definitely, this isn't any like surprise or anything on this side of it. The team has definitely indicated that JSN is going to be playing outside of the slot more this year. So I do agree that's his normal receiver, but this is also just part of what the team's told us about what their intention is in using Cup, using JSN. And some of the Z stuff gets mitigated a little bit by the fact that they're going to run so many condensed splits with their wide receivers. So, a little bit of that comes down to kind of the same thing. If you're running a condensed split, you technically have one guy that's a slot off the line of scrimmage, and the Z also gets to be off the line of scrimmage. It's a little bit of a semantics about whether or not that guy's actually playing, slot or Z, but technically speaking, it's a Z position at that point. Colin, man, do we have any injuries or on our team other than Nwosu? I feel like we kind of got lucky this offseason. Or are most teams usually fine by this point? I think it depends. I think there's some teams that get through and they're in a really great place. Some of it coming from the place calm that some teams are very protective, so they don't run maybe as fierce a training camp. They don't run their starters as much into, or just the players they're relying on in preseason games. And then you have your other teams that are going to push much harder and maybe risk more of the injury front of it. I think Seattle plays a little bit more middle of the road with that. But you do bring up where it's at, which is that we are very fortunate where we stand right now from an injury situation. And that if you do run what has been, I think, a pretty intense camp from Mike McDonald's standpoint, the price of doing business on that tends to be that there's going to be a couple injuries that come out the other side of it. And that hasn't been the case. You have Charles Cross coming back by week 1, Nwosu on track for maybe even getting back by week 1. And then the only guy you've really lost that's one that hurts a little bit is the McIntosh injury. But outside of that, you're pretty free and clear. And like you asked about other teams, I mean, looking within our division to give you a bit of just a snapshot, if you just take a look at the division, for instance, to your questionable point on this column, Cal, you have a Cardinal team that's been down Walter Nolan, their first-round pick throughout training camp due to a calf injury. You've got him with multiple injuries already in that secondary, losing guys on IR for the season. You got the Niners right now coming into week 1 where Malik Mustafa is not going to be ready. Brandon Ayuk is still not going to be ready, probably not back by until week 6. You've got a Juwan Jennings maybe out with his quasi-calf injury, whatever's going on there. You have a Dominic Pooney who's going to have to rush like mad to get back for game 1, and maybe he's not going to be 100% by the time he gets back there by game 1. So then you have the Rams on the other side of it who are pretty healthy overall. You have Stafford with the back, and you have Alaric Jackson with the blood clots. But aside from that, they've done a pretty good job of keeping their guys pretty straight as that stands. So that's that. Team by team, it's all very different. There's kind of not a one usual standard to where you land at the end of training camp on this. Everybody's all across the board with it a bit. Rain. Thought I was missing something with O'Connell with all the Hawks experts gushing over the guy. Guess not. Yeah, I mean, he played well for us. I mean, he's watching the film again today, prepping for Seahawks Weekly tomorrow, and, he was showing out in the game. He's playing well. He's played well any of the times that we put him out there. He's giving you what you would want from the linebacker position. Solid tackler, decent in coverage. But when it comes to the backup linebackers, you never know. You never know. Gibson, I hope Gino and Pete do well in Oakland. I can't see them winning more than 7 games. I think it's going to be an uphill battle this year, winning more than that for sure. But I think that's a successful opening year for Carroll and Gino there. And you got a lot of work to do with that Vegas team walking in there. It is not something that you're just going to instantaneously turn around and make into a winner, with a positive environment and a good atmosphere. And, it's going to take a little bit more than that there. They need more talent, especially. Super Z Freak, Z needs to be lighting fast, and we only have 2 guys left on the staff that can stretch the field, Horton and Arroyo. Who will play tight end? Maybe some X? Yeah. Quickness is definitely something you like to have from the position there. I think it kind of somewhat depends, Freak, a little bit on the type of guy you're looking out. There's kind of some of it's the type of offense you're running and what kind of routes you're going to have that guy running from that position. And, it's I think the Seahawks are taking a little bit of a different non-standardized approach to the wide receiver position and the roles those players are going to play within that. And that you're going to see guys kind of flexed all over the place just a little bit within this. Whereas more teams, to your point in the seek, are going to have more allotted guys to allotted spots. I think it's a little bit more multiple here in the way that they're going to run it. But we'll see come week 1. Zeke says, looks like they kept O'Connell. No, my guy, it's right. It's right over here. You can see it on my list. Patrick O'Connell's been waived. He got cut. Alex Farias, I think Dumper hit 60 this season, about 30 games left. That feels about right to me too. And that's an all-time, type year, isn't it? All-time type year. I was trying to think about it. It's like, would we consider maybe the fact that if he did get to like 60, so if he did get to 60, I mean, you do say, so if he got to 63, if he hit 13 more homers, I think you could make a really strong argument at that point that he's got the record all time, essentially. That you don't, that you'd give him the nod because then above him you'd have Sammy Sosa, Mark McGwire, and Bonds. Those are your 3 guys basically above. Aaron Judge has got a 62 home run season. But I would, and Aaron's probably got the ownership of it right now, technically, if you want to do it with the whole steroid stuff. But if he got to 63, that'd be kind of cool because there'd be a lot of baseball fans like myself that would say, essentially, he's the guy that gets to have that record because he's the guy who knows clean. And those other guys were more juiced than the World Wrestling Federation. Feed Me More Seahawks, thank you for the $2 donation. Feed me. Appreciate you, man. It's good to see you in the house. You think they hype up Kyler Murray again on the round table? Those guys love Kyler. I don't know why all 3 of them have some kind of weird affinity for him. I get with Mike because it's your quarterback and you kind of have to. But when it comes to the other guys, I'm like, what is it he's done, you guys? I tried to make the case last week where I was like, why are you guys talking about this guy like he's got all these pelts on the wall? He hasn't done anything. And he's being given opportunity after opportunity and still not doing anything. But they like themselves some Kyler Murray, I guess. You make it make sense to me on that one, Feed Me. I just sit there and shake my head and go, yeah. CJ, Brandon, with O'Connell being cut, is Ivy making the team? I think his chances much more improve, especially when you've not only cut O'Connell, but you have, the other linebacker there. Jamie Sharif's also been moved here. And Sharif was the one I was wondering if maybe you'd 2-for-1 it, where you'd have him an inside linebacker, and then he could also play some edge. So, maybe this is a little bit of an indication that the team is going to roll with Ivy there as the extra edge there on the roster at this point. Very possible. Yeah. Hard to say right now quite until, because there's still so many, we haven't really gotten the multitude of names yet. So everything's still a little bit up in the air on that. Just a tiny bit. I'll be right back. One sec, folks. Colin Cow, Niners DeMarcus Robinson officially out for our game due to SSPD. So wild. What's happening there? They're in tough shape right now, and especially it's tough shape for week one. It is getting kind of in a place that's very close to what I would call desperate. You moved Deebo Samuel this offseason. Brandon Ayuk doesn't come back to week 6. You brought DeMarcus Robinson in to be a hedge until Brandon Ayuk could be healthy. Ricky Parasol had his own injuries he was dealing with throughout a lot of the offseason once again, and he's a guy that's going to operate best when he's in really only the slot. You don't want to be moving that guy to the outside. He will be shut down. He cannot get off press coverage. He's got shorter arms. He does not have elite speed to be able to operate on the outside. So he's got to be more of a slot guy. This is why they're making these trades for Sky Moore. This is why they're signing Robbie Chosen, and that those are going to be one of those two guys is going to be one of your starters week 1 against the Seattle Seahawks. Let me say that again. One of those two guys is going to be your starter opposite Parasol week 1 against the Seattle Seahawks. Jacob Cowling is out. He pulled his hamstring. It's a decimated wide receiver role. Even Justin Gage, they lost. A guy they're bringing again, just be a steady veteran guy. If it gets crazy, if we get down to the bare minimum, at least we got you we can lean on. Even he has gone down. So it is thin. You're going to be starting receivers who aren't particularly good, who don't know your system particularly well week 1, and you better believe that that's going to be a mighty big benefit for your Seattle Seahawks. Zeke says, hell yeah, Ivy's making this team. He's a dominant run stuffer with pass rush tools. Future looks good with him. Like him quite a bit. Thrill House Raleigh's been having an MVP season, but man, the Naylor pickup is paying dividends. You love the way that the team actually went at the deadline and grabbed a couple of guys. Naylor's just a great fit to that stadium and that park. His swing, the way he goes about his business, perfect. A guy that they definitely should be looking at getting extended this offseason. And then you went out, got Eugenio Suarez back in here too. You really lengthened out that lineup in a way that you haven't in recent years. And that's on top of already kind of slowly building lineup up with guys that you brought in like Royce Arena, and whatnot. So they've really done a good job this year for a team that didn't have a lot of money spending, how to get creative in the ways they did it. They've done that. And you got to give the Mariner organization props for doing it. And hopefully it does pay off with a nice Super Bowl, World Series run, or at least a playoff run at that. Jeb Whirls says the Pats waived Cole Strange. Could be an upgrade option for us. You guys remember how much the Rams organization, like on the day of the draft, was laughing at the Patriots were taking Cole Strange? Would they take him in the first round or was it the second round? And it was like, you never hear coaches talking trash about other organizations and bad picks they make, but it was kind of like the Rams were caught in the moment where they were just talking about something else. And then the story got broke as they were sort of sitting there in the press conference, and they're like, wow, we liked him too, but much later. And then the Pats brought in Cole Strange at that point, Jeb, and they proceeded to take him out of the center position and move him to guard. I don't know what the NFL freaking idiot crew, and that's a guy in Belichick who knows better than to do that. They love to do this where you can get a center and you move him to guard, get a guard and move him to center. I get the guard to center. The center to guard thing is a little bit of a harder transition to be made, and I don't understand it well. But a guy that was at his best is at the center position, should be only a center in the way he's looked at. It does, to me, speak a little bit here that maybe he's not particularly good, Jeb, in the respect of that's a Patriot team that needs offensive line help. And so you're not going to give up quality guys when you're kind of that thin as it is. But maybe a guy worth kicking the tires on. As a center, I thought he was a decent prospect a couple of years ago. Small school guy. Brian says trade for Jacoby Myers. I don't think the team. I think the team feels a lot better at the wide receiver position than the fans do. That's my instinct on this one. New Blacks, except Kirk is probably more back to healthy now if Penix gets injured. Yeah, but the mobility ain't there with him, and he's going to have to move around with that offensive line. They lost Drew Dahlman this offseason. Now you lost Caleb McGarry. I know the thing that we've said about the Falcons the last couple of years is it's a team with a lot of good offensive line. They've built it strongly, and it's taken some hits. Jake Matthews over there is heading into year like 11 over on the left side. It's not quite as strong as what it was 3 years ago. But they do have Cousins there. That is right. Gibson says, I think this is LA Rams' last run with Stafford. They have a good team. I agree. I think this is the one more season situation, and that they position themselves with the Falcons draft pick next year and their native selection to be able to go get their pick of the quarterbacks next draft. They're just going to seamlessly move from one to the next. Thrill didn't Tony Romo have terrible back issues? He did. I think technically, when it's all said and done, that's what basically ended up making him retire. And wasn't it the Cliff Averill preseason hit that kind of sparked that and really pushed that to kind of be? I want to say that's the case. But yeah. Quinn, Falcons be like, we're going to make having two starting quarterbacks smart by protecting them so poorly that we need them both. Brilliant. Brilliant. This is a nice Jake impression, laughing out loud. Will says, from what I've heard, Arch isn't coming out until he gets his degree. So Arch himself poured cold water on this, Will, because there's been people within the family there, including Archie Sr., who said that he's not going to be coming out. And Arch came out a couple days ago and said, I don't know where Grandpa heard that. I never said that. So it's a thing with Arch where I think that you just got to think this through a little bit on a logical, reasonable place of things. Arch goes out and has a really good year. Really good year. Maybe not the pure Heisman where, maybe not Will goes out and gets the national title, but he has a really good year. The number one pick is coming up. Let's say the number one pick is, I want to think about this, right? I want to find the right team here. Not this. I don't want to use the Saints because that'd be like maybe a team that, would want him on it. Let's say it's Dolphins. I'll use the Dolphins, though maybe he'd be willing to go there. But let's say that that is a kind of a quasi-dysfunctional organization in certain respects, kind of a weird owner a little bit. They have the number one overall pick. Falcons have the number 8th overall pick. The Rams have the number 21st overall pick and the number 8th overall pick. So Miami's like, we need a quarterback. And Arch goes, well, look, I'm not going to come out if you're going to pick me. You'd have to move the pick. I'm not going to go to Miami. And it doesn't have to be Miami on this. Just think of it being any other team that's like kind of not a great run organization that, Dallas. I don't want to go play under Jerry Jones. Not going to do it. Okay. So now they've got to force the hand kind of trade like they did with Eli Manning with the Giants and the Chargers. Same situation plays out again, essentially. And now you have the Rams sitting there able to provide the soft landing for the team that's got the number one overall pick. Hey, we can throw you this first and this thing. And somebody else out there might say, well, the Browns have 2 first-round picks as well. But then again, is Eli going to want to go to Cleveland? No damn chance. So this is the real crappy part about the Falcons making that move. It's not just about the extra pick you pick up. It's that you're such a good organization and such a nice-looking organization to a guy like Arch when he does come out, if he is going to be that good, that it just flows seamlessly into you being handed off over to them next. And it's all really set up. The wheels greased fully by the Falcons throwing that pick in the way that they did. I'm not as sure on staying to 27 Italian night. Again, Arch, go Italian night, and Will on this, go look at Arch's press conference that he was just talking at a couple days ago. This just came out. We poured cold water on this. I'm absolutely not coming out until 26 or 27. I'm going to play the whole college career thing on it. Like, to me, this is a little bit about like, yeah, he's likely to stay in college, but if a good, wonderful, beautiful opportunity arises this year after this season with that number 1 overall pick, i.e. a team like the Rams being one he can go to and play underneath McVay and play for a team that's a contender right now, versus let's say he's going to take that 26 and 27 approach. Well, now, does he have as much leverage when he gets to the point where he actually has to come out in the draft? Like if it's 27 and he's got to come out, and he's been a senior and he can't just say, I'm going to go back a year if I get drafted by a team I don't like, and now he gets a little bit more of the hand forced to where he goes. That's where on this, I think it's a fluid situation. We don't know how it's all going to play out, but I can absolutely see where there's the opening for it to happen this year if the Rams can find a way to get themselves around that first overall pick. Jeff, those were just the guys that got hurt on Niners receiving core. Guard craze. The Rams have to sanitize Stafford's back injury. Otherwise, the fan base will be upset. Maybe so there. Maybe so. John Sims, I live in Vegas. It's only hot, not fun. It's lost a lot of its luster out there. It really has. Yeah, hard times coming to Vegas, definitely. They seem like they're in trouble. Sounds like Ivy has made the roster, according to Greg Bell. Interesting news there on that. So maybe Ivy has made the roster. Well seen on that. Well, cool for him. Kid came in and worked his butt off. One of the guys that I had is identified as one of your undrafted rookie free agents to keep an eye on. Guy with some ability to him. Looking to see if we got any news here. Walter Nolan has been placed on the unable to perform list by the Cardinals, so he will miss the first 4 games of the season. When the Seattle Seahawks play the New Orleans Saints, Spencer Rattler has been officially announced as the starting quarterback there. We'll see if that remains. And it sounds like we got Connor O'Toole potentially making this roster in addition to Jared Ivey. There's a shocker for you if Connor O'Toole made it, huh? Sounds like DJ Dallas is out in Arizona. Still no full list, though, here yet. So still waiting on that. Let's get a refresh here in the old goal site. Shout out to Mookie for holding it down today, keeping us up to date with the tracker. RSF, no Ricky White. He's been cut. Kiki Calhoun mentions a very good point. He says, we are all now avid Jerrell fans. We need him to succeed. Yeah, come on, Mike. Be ready for this one, man. Be ready, please. Kieran says, I don't see Stafford playing the whole year. Getting pain shots in preseason ain't going to result in fewer pain shots in the regular season. I don't know who is going to get him, but he's going down. You do have a bit of the ticking time bomb thing going on with this guy, and it was something that I think that they knew when they traded for him a couple of years ago, Kieran. And that they knew that this thing might last a year, this thing might last 4 or 5 years. Backs are hard to predict. They're just weird. And when they start going wonky, they've got their own timetable for how long they're going to take to maybe resolve, if they will kind of ever resolve. And when you're taking hard shots and when you're running around at high intensity levels, that's really tough on the back. You're carrying 30 pounds of pads on your back, tough on the back. So we'll see how it goes. I agree with you. You do just wonder on this, on how it is where it's been such a struggle through all training camp, and now just suddenly everything's right and beautiful and great coming to the regular season. I mean, maybe it is just that he doesn't need preseason and he just wanted to sit out and rest it as much as for that. But You are more than just managing this situation, it feels like, from a Rams perspective. You're kind of holding on with a death grip. Black Thought Brown Dream says, don't sign the prenup, Kelsey. Vimy Cole Strange got released. Is he an option, B? I mean, he is an option. It's, again, us going back to a little bit of our draft status outlook of the guy when, he was taken initially. And then I think we kind of liked him a little bit. I don't think anybody even in our community was really super huge on him when he came out. He was an interesting center. We were looking, I think, at a center at that point. He's played 3 years here for New England. And so, he's been rated in the first year 54. He had an average year 23, where he was a 64 graded guy. And then last year was brutal. Only 117 snaps. So very, very, very injured last year. Part of the reason why he didn't play more. And then the year that he did do good there in 2023, as I said, they did have him more playing at a left guard. So it's a bit of the interesting thing is last year he finally got tried out there as a center, but he was only out there for a center 2 games at the end of the season in week 17 and 18 on what was a very bad Patriot team at that point. Good in pass protection as a center when he was in there according to PFF and how he looked. I'm open to it as a guy here that you may like in that way and look at him as a guy that didn't. It's kind of like the Ethan Posick situation in Seattle, where it's a guy that gets drafted really high, should be a center, is a pure center. For whatever reason, you're moving him over to guard through the early part of his career. And that once you put him back to his natural position, he's going to be naturally at his best. It's possible with that. I'm open to it. It looks like he's been playing more left guard, feed me, than right guard. So that says, yay, I was hoping Ivy made it. He earned it, man. You tell these players you got to do A, B, C, D, E to get onto a roster if you're an undrafted rookie free agent. You better work your butt off. You better flash. You better show up. You better, be productive in games and the action we give you. And he's done all that. Beyond Balance, thank you for the $5 donation. It says, I just got here. Wow. Tyreek, O'Connell, Jarek Reed. Surprised about all but White. Super happy about MBS. Yeah, MBS just got himself onto a roster with just other receivers that had proven themselves as special teams player. I mean, this is an ultimate example of how do you want to earn a roster as a young kid that's a receiver on the edges of a roster? How do you want to get in there? Go out there and be a special teams demon. And if you happen to have on the roster another receiver who's been in this league for years and feels like he's put the work in already and that he's not as interested in doing that special team stuff, that can be enough. If you're close to what he is as a receiver, you get the edge because you play special teams and you play it well. And I think that's what MBS ran into here in this training camp period. And it's a good problem to have. This is what you want to do at the Cutdown day. And is you want to be cutting through guys that you feel bad about, that you're like, oh, I don't want to let go of this guy. But that's what happens when you built a strong roster. So yeah, definitely some surprises on this one, Beyond. Definitely some surprises. It's always a little bit like this every year to a degree, though, too, where we get locked in on who we think it's going to be, and the team's always got a little bit of a different outlook on some of these guys. So that part's kind of also what you normally get this time of year. But yeah, very, very surprising on a couple of these. I get the Tyreek one. With Jared Ivey's ascent, that kind of knocked Tyreek out. Jared was just too good. But thank you, Beyond Balance. Appreciate the donation, man. Let me get caught up on a couple of these other ones here. I'm a little behind. My bad. And sorry, I was a little bit late on that one, Beyond. Thank you as well for being a member of the channel. JRD243, thank you for the $2 donation. Is George Holani making it? I feel like he is, JRD, yeah. I don't have confirmation on this as of yet, 100%, but the kind of preseason that he had, he was strong last year during preseason as well, and the times you gave him some action out there too. I think looks like a even more improved player here in the year 2, and he seems to me like he's kind of grabbed that third running back role. He's got some quickness and speed to him. He's got some good contact balance, especially on some of the guys that try to go low on him to tackle. And he would be a very big surprise at this point if he doesn't make it, JRD. I think Holani's done enough to get there. Damn near averaged 10 yards a carry in his final game. Kevin Mullen, thank you for the $5 donation. Kevin. Okay, what are we doing, kitty? Come on. Let's go up. Let's go up here. There we go. I know. I know. Kevin Mullen, Thank you for the $5 donation, Kevin. You guys are just kind as ever here. I really do appreciate it. It says Kyle Shanahan still yells out he's on a long distance. Kyle Shanahan still yells out that he's on long distance. Question. Question. Should we be worried about third wide receiver option, even with an unproven wide receiver tight end? We be worried about wide receiver 3 option, even with an unproven receiving tight end depth? Hate to rely on 2 rooks. Yeah, I think wide receiver is a little bit of a concern as it stands, certainly, Kevin. It's not as much a concern to me with having Torrey Horton develop in the way that he's developed, because I think that he has shown himself to be a legit talent here. We can hold things up against a guy and being a 5th round talent, and it's like a narrative that just sort of sits and hangs over your head, where like, well, there's all these teams that passed on you 4 times. Some guys passed on you 5 times. There's no talent here. There's no upside here. You can maybe be just a guy in the league at your best. I think that there's a little bit of that carries over the top of you when you're taking the draft in that particular area. And maybe rightfully so, because most of those players and guys in that area too tend to shake out and become that. But what if you have almost a Puka Nacua-like player in Horton? What if the team knows in the background that they have a player like that can work on the outside? It makes a lot of these other moves make a lot more sense. It makes the willingness to go with the youngsters at both receiver and the tight end position make a lot more sense. And I can't guarantee that I know that this is the case in what's going on, Kevin, and this is the way that this is playing out true and exact. But boy, it does seem like there's a sense that that's what's happening here. As protective as they were with Torrey through the back end of the preseason period, and I think he could play on that ankle if he had to play on it. I just think that this team loves what they've seen out of this kid. I think they feel like they've got probably like a 2nd round steal in the 5th round in Torrey. If I was to ask McDonald, if I was to put him on the lie detector test and say, with what you've seen from Torrey, where should he have really gone in this draft? 2nd round. I think if you put John and Mike McDonald on that lie detector, they would both tell you that same thing. So if you have a 2nd round talent on this receiving core and an outside guy at that can play truly X, Z, all of that, then it makes a lot more sense where the confidence comes in on these guys. But back to your question on this, it is a worry. When I look out across the league right now and I see Devon Vele going for a 4th and a 7th to the Saints, when I see Sky Moore is worth some kind of value out on, I'm kind of surprised MVS wasn't worth something, considering these lowly receivers were actually garnering back returns in trades. So from that standpoint, I'm sort of thrown off on that just a little bit with that. You couldn't get a little bit more. And that also does make me a little bit worried, Kevin, when it comes to, well, what if we got to get to the trade deadline and we have to go out there in search of a wide receiver? Cooper Kupp goes down. And now you need to go get something out there that's a little bit more, sure. And you got the Niners out there just desperately taking a bite at everybody. Other teams out there that are kind of thin at the position. And, like a Saints team, for instance, and maybe that puts you in a position then where you go, boy, we don't have a lot of answers here and where we can go with this. So it is a little bit of a concern, but not as much because of the rookies for me, Kevin, as much as, well, if you get that injury you sustain, it does just as much come back to depth more than it's the unproven guys at the front. It's well, if I got to call and get into that depth pretty heartily, I might find myself a little bit stuck in who I can call upon. And we've had years in Seattle, not recently, but we have had years in Seattle back in the Holmgren days where you saw a receiving room get really thinned out and you were calling guys off the streets, and it doesn't get pretty at that point. One of the reasons I'm so kind of anti where the Niners are at right now is because they're kind of in this barrel. They're swimming in this barrel, and there's not a lot they can kind of do about it. So it's a little bit of a concern, but Horton's ascent and what I think he's got from an upside standpoint, I think kind of makes me feel a little bit more warm and fuzzy about the situation than I would otherwise, Kevin. Especially when they're confident enough to let go of a guy like MVS, who gives you a little bit of safe refuge for the position, and knowing the offense, can play inside, can play outside. Letting go of that just speaks to, I think, of what these guys are doing behind and what they've brought to the table to earn it. Jeffrey Thistle, thank you for the $2 donation, Jeffrey. Falcons are going to have a craptastic defense, but are going to win 7 games. I love your confidence, and I hope you're right. I really do. Because I think that they're a team that's going to be picking top 10 in the draft next year. I think that they're a team that has overrated their roster very often in recent years in what they think they are, where they think they're going, the signing of the Kirk Cousins to the contract they signed him, and then the drafting of they are another one of those sort of scrambling kind of organizations that doesn't always feel like they've got a forecasting outlook to how they're building their roster, but instead are running kind of year by year in their basis of their approach. And they're going to get that 7 wins. They better hope that those edge rushers they've taken over the last couple of years are going to be ready to produce. They better hope rookie edge rushers are going to be ready to produce. And the thing that we know about rookie edge rushers, they don't tend to be ready to produce in their first year. Tends to be something you got to wait 2 or 3 years for. Look at ourselves here, Jeffrey. Derek Hall, 2nd round, nothing in the first year. Boye Mafe, 2nd round, nothing in the first year. Byron Murphy, 1st round last year. Playing out of position, yes. But doesn't necessarily give you a lot production-wise that first season. I think that they're going to run into this a bit. And one more injury on that offensive line. Danger. Michael Penix better go get his insurance bumped up a bit. I'll say that. And that's the other part of this too with it is you got a line with some shaky parts, and then you have a quarterback with a pretty rich injury history who doesn't take well to getting beaten around a lot. The second you start knocking around Michael, and I like Michael a lot coming out, but one of his fatal flaws is that not the best about mobility and moving around in the pocket, and not the best about if I consistently start getting him dinged a little bit throughout a game, he's not going to react the best to that. He'll fall away from his throws. He'll start to maybe not feel full on ghost, but you'll sense a bit of a different way he's rolling about his game at that point if it goes down like that. Get a little more coffee. One sec. Signed Jerrell Owens' son. Thomas says, well, it's not sure Manning is good. He hasn't gone one full college football season, and it's not a full sure that Seattle doesn't draft allers or sellers. It's not full sure that Seattle doesn't draft allers. Seattle can look at a quarterback too, and it doesn't have to necessarily be Manning on this. That's the one that the Rams do go for. I think that's the one I'm most scared about because I think he's got the most potential of these college quarterbacks coming into the season. But what if it's just, Thomas, that they get the best quarterback in the sport because they have those 2 first-round picks? What if it's just down to that? You get the best quarterback in a draft, and that's the part where I just don't like how the Falcons have set that up, where Rams can go out there and be very good this year and still have that on their horizon line that they get to add then that quarterback the next season. It just sucks. Thomas says, do you think Seattle signs Brennan Jackson? He was on the Rams roster until last night. Kind of a surprise cut by the Rams, too, to your point on that. Former WSU big power edge Thomas had a couple of sacks in a game in the preseason here for the Rams. A guy that you could see feels like maybe would find a role there with the team where they could get him out there on early downs to be that power edge and then bring in your pass rushers on the passing downs, but didn't seem to fit into that role. And I think if a guy like Ivy hadn't ascended like he had, that might be a possibility, Thomas. If you didn't have a Mike Morris on the roster, I think that'd be a possibility. But because those two guys exist, I don't think that there's a spot here for a guy like Brendan. CR checking in from Germany. How you doing, man? Says, do you guys have any favorite waivers so far? Las Vegas waived Carter II, and Browns waived Cohen would be my favorite so far. I don't know if there's been anybody. I think Cole Strange is a little bit one that could be interesting, but I don't know if you'd want to bring him onto the active roster and kick a guy like Olatimi off in favor of that. But not as of yet. I will say, CR, what's happening here with some of these teams is there's the 1 p.m. deadline, and then you're not really hearing about the true final rosters here, it seems like, until you're a little bit more down the line. So the reason that's kind of important to me on this one is that the reason this one's kind of important to me is because the ones that are going to be the late cuts, the ones that come at the end, are going to be the ones that you're going to be most tantalized by. That like, ooh, they let that guy go, and it's going to be kind of that 11th hour situation there when that actually does go down, in my opinion. So there just hasn't been a lot of great names out there quite yet. John Sims, per Corbin, Ivy and O'Toole made the team. So Connor O'Toole makes the team as maybe the biggest surprise so far. Ivy's a surprise, but I think even Connor's the bigger one. That's sort of a shocker and maybe an indicator the team's going to carry some extra edges here on this roster. Very interesting. Black Thought, Brown Dreams, thank you for the $1 donation. It's got an upset emoji in there on the emoji in there. I appreciate that, man. Oh, goodness. Jeffrey, thank you for the $5 donation, Jeffrey. People seem to forget we don't even know how good Arch Manning is. He's been highly protected at Texas, hasn't even played a full season. Seems sus. And again, I can get where people are coming on to that. It's a valid thing to say, look, Arch hasn't proven yet that he can be the number one overall pick. I think he is, by all accounts, the most talented Manning that we've ever seen. And I think in itself is probably something that we should probably, be paying a little bit of an attention to in the respect of, that's no small thing, because there's been some pretty good Mannings that have come down the line here. But let's just take him out of it. Like I was kind of saying a little bit on this one to Thomas, Jeffrey. Let's just remove Arch from this. Let's say Arch doesn't come out in next year's draft, and it's just Drew Allers and Cade Klubnik and Lenora Sellers. I think in the case of Klubnik and Aller, those are two guys that would have gone ahead of any quarterback in this last draft. They would have been the number one overall pick for the Tennessee Titans if either of those two guys had come out. I believe that without any shadow of a doubt. So we just come back again to, okay, if it's not Manning, they're still going to be able to go get the best quarterback in the draft. And I mean, it should bother everybody out there if one of the division rivals that's been to multiple Super Bowls recently, one of the division rivals that's owned you most recently, one of the division rivals with one of the smartest head coaches in the National Football League, one of your division rivals who's got one of the owners more willing to spend money than anybody else in the league, then goes out and gets the best quarterback in an entire NFL draft. That to me is worrisome. That's a worrisome combination that can lead to some troubles down the road for our Hawks. And I'd much rather have the Rams in a situation of moving off Stafford and being left scrambling and trying to go, what do we do now? Well, let's grab this guy in the second round. Let's run with Stenson Bennett for a little while and see what we can do with him. I want more of that. Less of, I got to go right to this super highly talented quarterback who's going to go with this coach who is going to know how to get the most out of him, who's going to do everything in his power that a coach can do to facilitate that talent to the best. So that's really what's got me as much worried as anything on this. And maybe wrongfully so when it's all said and done, but it's not even necessarily Arch. It's just that it's the specter of an Arch, the specter of an Aller, the specter of a Klubnik. And in Aller and Klubnik's case, I've watched a lot of film on both of these two guys. They are tremendously talented quarterbacks. They are going to both be very worthy of being top 10 kind of quarterbacks. I mean, even a Garrett Nussmeier, who I'm not as high on, is another guy to throw into the mix on this. I want to see them in quarterback purgatory. I want to see them years of like going from this guy to the next guy. I don't want a seamless bridge, Jeffrey, on that. But valid points on your part. Still don't know exactly what Arch is, and may come to find out that there's a reason he's been sitting on the bench in lieu of Quinn Ewers the past couple of years. Certainly Quinn isn't very good. Kyle from South Park, thank you for all the donos today, man. Very kind of you, brother. On the round table, I want to name one quarterback who was good while having a bottom five offensive line, wide receiver room, running back room, and tight end defense plus coaching. Darnold had it all in New York. So, a great point on that point by Kyle. You look at Darnold in New York, bottom five offensive line, bottom five wide receiver room, bottom running back room, bottom tight end room. I mean, who were they running at tight end? It was just definitely some nobody there at that time. I forget his name, but it was like, oof. It's like the guy even a top 20 tight end. And then the coaching was just awful. And you can hear in how they talk out there, Kyle, at the round table. I've kind of pulled at the edges of this, and that's why I say it is a repeat of the Geno Smith situation with them, where I'm seeing all of those guys in the way that their outlook of the situation, making the same mistakes that they made when they looked at Geno and got that wrong. And it's, to me, the same thing down the line playing out here, where you're holding this guy to account on where he was in his very first stop when he was in a situation with anybody who you throw into that situation over the last 30 years, 25 years, and you can even throw a Hall of Famers in there, have failed. Failed. And it's not those quarterbacks failing because they just all suck down the line. It fails because it's a horribly run organization. Horribly run. But it's hard-lined in on those guys. It was hard-lined in with Geno. It's been hard-lined in with a lot of the Darnold discussions I've had with people in my chat at times. That first stop when you come in as a quarterback, the first look that you show everybody in the NFL, man, you better be good, because for a lot of fans' perspectives, a lot of teams' perspectives, a lot of pundits and analysts' perspectives, that first look and what you are is who you are. And you can never grow beyond that. You can never be better than that. That is who you will forever be. So be good, be bad. That is what you are forever then. Because I've seen so many quarterbacks that are being given this sort of outlook of things, and you go, how did you come to that conclusion? How do you reach that should be the end all be all of that player? Especially the quarterback position, where you think you'd give it more years. You think you'd give it more time for those guys. You'd be less likely to jump to conclusions as you would be for maybe other positions that have to be better immediately. A running back comes in and he's not good immediately for you. Like, you jump to your conclusions all day on those kind of guys. But a quarterback, like you say, that deals with not just 1 or 2 or 3 or 4, but 5 impeding factors to performing well, well, then you've got to give them a little bit of an extra, I think, bit of time, bit of patience, maybe not jump to those kind of conclusions. But they're doing the same thing, Kyle. They did this with Geno, and it's ironic to me because I raked them last year on the Geno thing. The second I walked into the round table door, I let them all have it for it, and I was proven right on it. I was proven utterly right on it. And when it comes to the Sam Darnold thing, they're making the same arguments, the same stuff, the same da-da-da. I'm going to be proven right on this one too. I wouldn't say it. I wouldn't have as much confidence in my outlook of Darnold if I didn't believe it. I'd be much more in that place of trying to hedge my bets. But because I've seen this story play out before, because I've started to understand this is now a new normal within the modern day NFL, and it is born out of 2 things. 1, dumbass organizations that have their heads so firmly up their butt they don't even know what sunshine looks like. And then the fact that these guys are absolutely young and need time to grow. Doesn't mean everybody grows, doesn't mean everybody gets better. But it does mean that if the guy's got the work ethic by all accounts and he's willing to put that time and energy in, then maybe they deserve a little bit more of a benefit of the doubt rather than just throwing them into the trash. Good points there, Kyle. Randy Roberts in the house. What's up, Randy? Thank you for the $5 donation. I appreciate you for that. Cornerbacks O'Donnell Fortune and Mello Dotson, Luke Kandra. Thoughts? Love you, brother. Hey, much love out to you too, Randy. Thank you for that support. And I don't know as much about O'Donnell Fortune. We're getting some fun names. That's a Key and Peele name right there. O'Donnell Fortune. Mello Dotson, though, was a lot of fun coming out. Kind of surprised to hear that he's going to be cut, though. Again, he did drop a little bit deeper into the draft than I thought with him. I believe I've got my... Still got my draft notes here. So Mello Dotson, 6'1", 190, impressive, twitched up outside corner, strong upside, 3-year starter with exceptional ball skills, 9 interceptions over the last 2 years. Could have been more. Could have been like 17. I mean, he had so many. You talk about a guy with a nose for the ball. Sticky hands, reacts to the throw in the air as well as anyone in the draft, maybe short of Travis Hunter, but above all, he just has a nose for the football, hyper athletic. He can read the route and run it better than receivers at times. Average for a tackler as a cornerback. He's kind of an ankle torpedo. He's not a wrap-up guy. You got to wrap up eventually a little bit. So I'm sure it's a little bit of, if we look at why he's cut, probably comes back down to a little bit here, Randy, of some of the tackling. I liked him, man. I just felt like he was a long day at the office for wide receivers in the games that I watched and that he played. He had another cornerback aside from him that was also taking the NFL here this past year, Randy. And I love watching corners like that as well in college, because if you're a good corner in college, oftentimes quarterbacks will just spend the whole game throwing somewhere else. So if you're really good about being able to, be good while you have another good guy opposite, you're going to get tested. You're going to get challenged. Part of why I got so many of those interception opportunities despite the good ball skills. So odd that he was moved. I would be potentially interested in taking a look at him. Hard to know if you'd want to kick off a guy like Josh Jobe to bring him in. But I'm with you. I did like him quite a bit. Luke Kandro is another guy that was a very interesting player in last draft. Just solid all-around right guard prospect. Good lateral mover. Gets out of his stance quick with purpose. His movement in space can feel a little stiff at times. So he's got to be quick to his spot. He's quick to the spot, but he's got to, he's got to make up for some of that stiffness. He's not the most naturally athletic guy. His lateral movement really comes alive in pass pro. Very strong moving off one block to the next during the play. Aided by a good sense of timing and power torque. It really does help him from the upper half strength because his lower half isn't always the most strongest. So he kind of leans on that upper half with that torque and whatnot to get the job done. Arms felt a little bit short on the tape. Tries to just kind of get into the chest of the guys. Maybe something that's part of the mitigating factors to why he was let go here. But the kid out of Cincinnati, Luke Kandro, was a fairly solid right guard prospect for me. I think I'd like a 5th, 6th round grade on him. Maybe a guy we're taking a look at here, especially if you're going to put on a guy like Haynes on the IR, if he's going to be out for a little bit of time. Maybe in Kandro, a guy that they could take a peek at. I just wonder if maybe a little bit of they'll look at him as saying, you don't have enough athleticism for us for what we want for the position to get that done. And maybe also a guy that's better suited to be in a more of a pass-heavy system more than a run-heavy system. So I don't know if he's going to be, especially from the right guard position, a pure mover of men that are going to be nose tackles opposite him. He's going to need a lot of double-team help to make that happen. But surprise Dotson and Kandro on the market there, Randy. I thought those guys would have definitely have made their team, especially in Kandro's case with offensive linemen mattering so much. But Melo's a lot of fun. He brings a lot to the cornerback position. Outside the tackling stuff, he brings everything else, including good size, ball skills that are hard to find for the position. So maybe a guy worth at least kicking the tires on potentially. Love to be able to slip him over onto the practice squad if that was possible. Thank you for the $5, man. JRD, thank you for the $2 donation. Says, what time is the round table on tonight? The round table will be cooking up tonight at 6 o'clock p.m. Pacific Standard Time. So if you guys aren't already, do get subbed up to what is the fastest growing show on the Roundtable Sports Network. We're beating out channels that have been around for multiple years prior to us. I mean, we are lapping them, folks. Lapping them, folks. We had like 9,000 views off the Roundtable show last week. So cool to see. So we are cooking with oil over there on that side of it. But we will be back 6 o'clock Pacific Standard Time on the Roundtable this evening. So if you're not subscribed up, it is a separate channel. It's not here on the Hawks Nest. It's over on the NFC West Roundtable is where you can find me over there. Every Tuesday, we're going to be going live during the season with content creators from the Cardinals and the Niners and the Rams. All of us kind of chopping it up, debating it and whatnot. And we're only about 2 months away here, by the way, 1 month away from having our meet and greet. So we're going to be doing a meetup in LA as well with the four of us for the roundtable. But 6 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, JRD, tonight on NFC West Roundtable. JRD with another $5 donation. Thank you for that, JRD. You guys are very kind today, as always, on this. I really appreciate it. He says, I feel like Horton only fell to the 5th because of injury history. He's so good. I'm going to get my coffee. I'm going to respond to your question. One sec. All right, JRD, I think you nailed it. There's one other thing I'm going to bring up that's another factor here that's playing into this a bit when it comes to the Horton drop. The injury is definitely a part of this. I don't quite understand as to why it's a part of this. The reason being is that a guy falls to injury history. It's a Okay, he's in the last year of his college career. He gets an injury. Let's say he tears his ACL in the 5th, 6th game, and it's a bad torn ACL, and they have to go in there and they've got to fix the bursa sac, and then it was completely torn, and they're having to re-put the ACL back together, and they're thinking it's going to be a long period of time for the recovery of that, and it's going to be just a long road, and he may never come back to being 100% ever again. This was not the case in what you got with Horton in this injury. He was treated like it was just like I described. He was treated like he had the ligament tear off the bone off of his hip or something, and that this was somehow going to be one that never allowed him to come back to full strength ever again. And we had no accounts of that in the way this injury was described. There was the fact that it was a long, took him a little bit of time to get back over it, and that even into off-season workouts, he was still, rounding back into shape. But if you understand the nature of that injury and you understand the nature of, the timeline of what it takes to get better from it, then that wasn't the biggest surprise, shocker thing to have happened, that it took him a little bit more time to come forward on it. And if anything, again, shouldn't then teams be going, wow, he's still recovering from this injury and he went out there and ran us a 4.440 on his pro day, still partially injured. That means he's probably into more of like a 4.37-ish guy if he's 100% healthy. So yeah, the injury one on this one seemed to color so many views of NFL evaluators in such an odd way, especially considering the fact 2 other aspects to this JRD being wide receiver position tends to be one that is, if anything, overvalued by NFL teams. That if you got a ton of production coming out of college, you're much more likelier than to be, taken there. And then the second part of this being that it was a very thin wide receiver draft. It was one of the weaker wide receiver drafts we had seen in recent years. These all should have been factors that then pushed Torrey Horton to be picked higher in the draft than he was. That shouldn't have allowed him to dip in, and it just doesn't make any sense as to why he did. 2,000-yard seasons prior to this year you came into. 2,000-yard seasons at Colorado State. And maybe that's a bit of the thing that held this back too, is that people looked at it and said, well, you did that production at Colorado State. What's that worth? So maybe it's actually 3 things. Maybe it is the injury history and the college aspect of it too, working with these other factors and play on it a bit. But I think it was just a complete lack of foresight by NFL teams in their outlook of this. I mean, the guy's 6'1", he's not a 5'9", 160-pound dude. There's some fatal flaw to his physical dimensions that restrict him or reduce him in that way. No, not there either. No. So it's kind of just an odd one, man, as to why he did fall. But he is just so good. And every day throughout training camp, it felt like he was making a play. Every day. Just out there doing something. Flashing here, flashing there. And multiple teammates have talked about him. And, you just don't hear guys talked about like that, the receiver position, late round drafted guys. We've had plenty of late round drafted receivers here in recent years who have made nowhere near the noise Horton has made in training camp. I could go through a litany of names. And you guys would be like, yeah, I don't remember ever hearing anything about him. Yeah, I don't ever remember hearing anything about him. So yeah, that's part of what makes this so very bloody impressive. But thank you, JRD, for the double dip dono, man. Kyle from South Park, thank you for the $2 donation. OU days, Adam requests trade when Jimmy G is quarterback. OU. Yeah, sometimes drop some over under. All right. A day's Adams requested trade when Jimmy G's quarterback. I'm missing something on this one. Over under of Adams request trade when Jimmy Garoppolo is quarterback? Write it in the chat if you can for me, Kyle. You don't have to donate. But if you put in the chat just what you mean on that. Over under days, Adams request trade when Jimmy Garoppolo is quarterback. Oh, because he can come here and get some sacks. Is that what you're saying, Kyle? Like, let me get my opportunities to that guy once he becomes the Rams quarterback. Hey, I'll say this about Jimmy. If Stafford goes down, I don't think Jimmy's going to be long for the Rams world as as their starting quarterback. That's a guy that's going to be injured after like 3 days. That's for sure. Especially with him only getting older since he was already made of glass back in his Patriot and Niner days. He's only gotten more glass-like, I would say. Thank you for the donation, though, Kyle. Appreciate all your support today, brother. Mark Sanchez, thank you for 22 months as a Hawks Nest member. Very kind of you. Appreciate that. Says B, I think the Rams are targeting Carson Beck. He's a better fit for them, and if Arch comes out, they will adjust. Beck, have a great season at the U. Yeah, Carson Beck, man. He got a couple million, too, which was surprising for me. And, of course, Mark's being very sarcastic in his post there. But Carson still was able to go out there and get paid. And another one of those guys that just to me, when you watch quarterbacks, and oftentimes the quarterbacks, you need a little bit of extra time to go through their film to get the good look. But I think it is a position that there's a lot of times with quarterbacks that you can see a couple of throws, you can see a couple of plays from a guy, and you've seen enough on both ends of the scale. You can see enough that maybe he ain't going to have enough to, wow, that guy is, whoa. That just jumped off the screen watching this guy. And Beck was on that other side of it, watching him last year with Georgia and watching how he went about his business. And guy, when you're already dealing with those limiting factors, then on top of it, you don't process particularly well. You don't handle pressure particularly well. And he's a guy that we'll see how it goes out there with him at the U. But I do not have a tremendously high opinion of Carson Beck, that's for sure. I need my quarterbacks to have something, Mark, give me at least the big arm. Give me at least some ultra mobility. Give me something flashy. Don't just be boring all the way down the line and then sucky in certain parts. But props to him. I think he still got a couple million off Miami on that. So good on him. He's winning. CP Mortimer, thank you for subscribing to the channel, CP. I really, really do appreciate that. If you can for me, folks, do please join CP and subbing on up to the channel. We're on the road here, and we're moving hot. We're getting there almost very soon to the 20,000 mark. Trying to get past that this point this year. If we can get it done, I would really appreciate it. But thank you, CP, for subbing up to the channel and doing that, man. Very kind of you. Rain, thank you for becoming a member of the channel, Rain. Welcome aboard the Hawks Nest. I appreciate you for doing that as well. We're going to be members of the channel, going through here, and we're going to be doing a call-in show here this weekend for you guys, so be on the lookout for that. Next Thursday, we'll be kicking off our Thursday night members only and patrons only, by the way, so you can become a member or a patron. So if you don't want to be a member through YouTube, you can also become a patron, and both of them get about the same benefits. Either one, though, gets you in on the Thursday night only football streams, as I will be kicking those off again this year for members of the channel. So a lot of benefits to be had as a member of the channel here. PFF scores on Monday morning after the games, Thursday night football, call-in shows at least once a month, and we're going to keep expanding those benefits to you guys. I thank you, Rain, for joining up and becoming a part of that. Really appreciate it. See if I've got any updates here for you guys as far as maybe we're going to finally get the roster here. Nothing coming through here yet. We're still waiting on that. See what you guys think of the I know Dan's showing this over on his edge. I don't know if I'm going to use this one yet or not. We'll see which one you guys like better. We'll see which one you guys like better here. Let's get the tracker back. Nothing new on that. So tomorrow is going to be the inaugural kicking off of a new show here on the Hawks Nest. It's also going to be over on Bryce Coots' new channel, Hawks Eye. We're going to be, do get subbed up to Bryce's channel if you get a chance, please. We also have, tomorrow we're going to be getting the Seahawks Syndicate kicking off here for you guys. So please be on the lookout for that. Where did my thing go? Did I not do the thing? Where's the thing? Trying to get this. 1 second here. I want to show you guys. I'll just do this the old-fashioned way. Sometimes I can just do this the old-fashioned way. I might use this thumbnail. I got a couple thumbnails here. We'll see which one the audience likes more. But the Syndicate's kicking off tomorrow at 6 o'clock. And here you go. This is us. We got me, Bryce, Mookie, Seahawks Syndicate. Dan Van's also going to be in on the house on this one. This is going to be a once-a-month show we're going to be doing. AI-generated image there. That's why I look like a Russian. I feel like I look like a Russian oligarchy there in that picture. But the Seahawks Syndicate kicks off tomorrow, 6 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. It'll be here on this channel, be on Dan, be on Bryce. Mookie Alexander from Field Goals, one of the guys helping keep us up to date here on the cuts here on the side of my screen here with you guys today. But we'll be rolling and going tomorrow at 6, and that's going to be once a month at the last month of the show, last week of the month. Every month here, we're going to be covering the Hawks, kind of just a grand overview look of things. JD keychain did get cut. Yes, he did. Mixes, why couldn't they trade that big to Seahawks? I know, I would have definitely been in business there for that Cardinal. I'll take that risk on that Falcon first. Johnny Evans, I don't know if Arch wants to cross the Mississippi. Also, his grandfather might have said something he didn't want out there yet. Yeah, I think it's a fluid situation. I think that any side that's sort of taking this, Johnny, is saying that they know what Arch is going to do one way or the other at this point, is kind of speaking out of school. And then I think it depends on the factors at play that he's walking into. That's really where it all boils down to. What is he walking into? What's the team he's looking at? What kind of season he had? That's a factor to this too. But if he goes down the line that he seems to be on track to head down, I think I could see this definitely playing out in a worst case scenario for your Seahawks. DJ says, Connor O'Toole over Patrick O'Connell. Brandon, any thoughts on what coaches saw? Connor was good and very energetic and active for you off the edge. They play two different positions. So Connor O'Toole is is an edge guy. Patrick O'Connell is your inside guy. I think it's less about Connor O'Toole, and it's probably more about the team feeling better about Josh Ross, who McDonald has a lot of familiarity with going back to Baltimore. They feel better about a Drake Thomas. And I don't know that Patrick O'Connell is a better player than Drake Thomas, but they see in Drake Thomas a guy who can be a sub-package linebacker for when you're in passing situations, and that he can be an upper-end, essentially cover linebacker. That he gives you a very specific skill set to the off-ball that you don't have from your other guys. And so that's what allowed him to maybe win this out over Patrick O'Connell as far as between those two guys. O'Connell more of your meat and potatoes inside linebacker and kind of do a little bit of everything. But in O'Toole, they seem to like a little bit of what he can bring long-term as far as a pass rusher, I would say. That would seem to be to me. CRs has also loved to ask the Packers for a trade for one of their defensive tackle nose tackles. Would love to get Stackhouse as they are so deep at the position. I'm a Stackhouse guy going back to the draft. I don't understand why that guy lasted so late in the draft. And I would love to be able to pick him up. I would love to. Ryan says, yeah, I joked about D-Mart and go to practice squad now. I'm like, man, he's probably going to another team. Yeah, probably so. CR, what do you guys think about the Jerrell trade? He didn't look bad. I actually liked him more than the other backups. Yeah, I thought he looked pretty good. I think he's more comfortable probably playing left tackle than right tackle, which is kind of ironic now because the Falcons are bringing him in there to play right tackle for them. But I was encouraged by what I saw from him. And Kyle, again, you're right completely about that with the Darnold situation. And to your point, when you say what quarterback would have succeeded in that environment, we have so many who have gone through there in these years. So many guys have gone through there. From your Geno Smiths and your Sam Darnolds and your Wilson and Aaron Rodgers. And it's a bad organization. It's not been to the Super Bowl in so many years for a good reason. Can't get out of its own way. Makes dumb decisions. Does things more often than not at times incorrectly in their approach. Thrill says, Hawk Blogger said Emawari hasn't impressed him all that much. I mean, the kid is learning a whole new system and he's a puppy. And he's had a really great training camp. I mean, I don't know the last time Hawk Blogger saw a safety have 3-4 interceptions through training camp as Emawari has. But he's earned all those picks that he's gotten. I watched him in person. He's impressive. I'm not sure what he's not seeing from him myself. Thomas, after looking at Milroe's game Saturday, I thought he was up and down. The fumbles sucked, but his throws are nice, especially the one on the run. Yeah, up and down. Mixed bag there. Team put him in some tough predicaments in how they set the stage for him a little bit too, I would say. New Black says, is Arch ready for the NFL after 1 year of starting in college? Well, I mean, every QB is going to be more improved by being given more time in college. And certainly there's a track record with Manning quarterbacks that they'll spend a little bit extra time there in college, to make it go. I think some of this just comes down to where I think that the concentration seems to be at times to me, New Black, on Arch and where he's at as a player. And if Arch doesn't go out there this year and do anything, then, it's okay. It's possible. I don't know that that's where this thing is tracking towards. The Manning family is not a stupid family. He's not been stupid in where he's gone to Texas. He's on a loaded roster out there at Texas. He goes out there and he has a really good year. I think if there was one player in the history of prospects we've looked at, New Blacks, who we could say about the quarterback position has only had that 1 year, and you feel perfectly fine in taking that guy after just one good year, wouldn't it be Arch? Wouldn't be the guy that is the third generation of quarterback where every Manning that's come into this sport has been pretty good, at the very least to not great. So you'd consider and you'd hope a little bit in that situation, New Blacks, that a guy like Arch, with all of the brain power, with all of the guys that are surrounding them who played in the NFL, that kind of guy could be better prepared as a youngster at a quarterback position coming out with only 1 year of starting experience that's much more buoyed up by having so much of that advisement at your back a little bit and getting you prepared faster, essentially. I might be taking a leap of logic here, but I would think that it would work that way. Thomas says, I am still of the opinion if Manning was good, then why would Ewers start over him? Either Sark is stupid or Manning isn't that great. Could be. I think that there's some factors in play to consider this, that the college level, you have to be very careful with quarterbacks and guys you bring in, and then bailing off those guys versus promises you've made, and then knowing that there'll be other quarterbacks that look to come to your school. And if you aren't keeping your promises to quarterbacks, let's remove NIL and all that, but if you're not keeping the promises of what you said you'll set up for that quarterback there, that maybe harms you down the line on recruiting a little bit. But to your point, Thomas, I do think it was a little bit strange, the fact that the team chose to run with Quinn Ewers, being that you could feel in Quinn Ewers that he wasn't a particularly good quarterback. I think that there's something worth saying in that. There's something worth noticing on that. Jeffrey, I want to trade a first-round pick with the Saints. Yeah, I do too, man. CJ, could the Seattle keep 6 wide receivers? Cody White? Possible. I think unlikely, though. Just because there's other positions you're having add this year, CJ, that you haven't had to add in the past. You're probably going to carry the 3 quarterbacks. You're going to need to have a fullback on the roster. I think that's going to be able to, the place I looked at in my roster projection on this that you're going to have to pull from will be the 1 receiver position, I think. So I think you just end up with 5. But Cody certainly did enough to probably earn a roster spot if you can do enough and being that 6th guy. Thomas says, I think Manning, if he'd have a choice between Seattle or the Browns, he would select Seattle, but I'm not in a fear state with the Rams getting Manning. I want to wait until the season plays out and the draft is here. Yeah, that's fair enough. And maybe that's as much as what I've got to try to do with this, Thomas, and trying to explain this a little bit as far as my personal fears on this. Manning is, and what he could be in the ultimate is being one of those real high-end prospect from a quarterback position standpoint where he's the number 1 overall pick. Is he closer akin to Drew Bledsoe types that have come out as the number 1 overall picks in years past? Elway types coming out in years past? Or is he more akin to a Couch or a Cam Ward kind of guy coming out? And I see that upside of being more to the former than latter, but let's just throw Manning out of this because I think that that's getting caught up in the chat a little bit here on the Manning aspect of this. There are other quarterbacks in this draft I've scouted and evaluated who have put out really, really good tape. And those quarterbacks are going to be taken very high in the draft. And the main issue at the heart of this is that one of the toughest things you can do as an NFL franchise is finding your franchise quarterback. To put this in perspective, your Seattle Seahawks, who have been 50 years as an organization. If I was to say a true top-end, top 6 franchise, top 5 franchise quarterback in the sport over that 50-year period, I can think of maybe you've had a 2 or 3 year period where you could say you had that quarterback who was that highly rated amongst the sport of his peers around him. Maybe a 3 year of a period like 16, 17, 18 of Russ. That's maybe it. But Dave Craig was never a top 5 guy. Jim Zorn was never a top 5 guy. Rick Meyer was never a top 5 guy. None of the quarterbacks you ran through in the 90s was ever a top 5 guy. I don't think Matt Hasselbeck was ever really a top 5 guy in the sport. More like top 10. And so it's very hard for NFL franchises to find franchise quarterbacks that are legitimate talented, legitimate ability. And in drafting one, it doesn't guarantee success. But it's just hard enough to find and have the opportunity to select the one. Hell, Seattle Seahawks history of actually selecting the one. You got Myers. And then what's your next highest quarterback you take? And what, 12, 13 to Dan McGuire? Second round guys, third round guys. So it's as more of that the Falcons have, as I've said, greased the wheels up here for the Rams to be able to now facilitate that bridge to the next quarterback in a way that if they didn't, the Rams would be in troubled shape. They'd be in troubled town in finding that next quarterback because they're too good to be picking too high. And now you're stuck franchise-wise. Now you may have a ready-made, potentially even Super Bowl roster up around it, but you don't have the quarterback position able to hold it down, and thus you're held back by that. But wherever you may stand with Manning, I think that it would be pretty undoubted amongst NFL evaluators that if Drew Aller came out last year, if Cade Klubnik could come out last year, that those 2 guys would have been taken ahead of Cam Ward. They would have been the number 1 overall pick. And that's what you're potentially facilitating here to this Rams team. And that's why it's got me a little bit, feisty about it. Ryan, is Risner still ghosting us? I was not aware he was ghosting us. Has the Riz been ghosting us? Come on, doll. Come home. I bet you're deep in credit card debt with that attitude. No, I'm pretty good. Peel, you got to make the roster? Absolutely. Banana bad guy. We wasted $3 million on MVS. You didn't know if Torrey Horton was going to be what he was, And if Torrey Horton isn't what he was, MVS makes this roster. So it's a hard thing to know about when you draft a guy. You maybe have a feeling about him. You may have hope for him, but you don't know until you bring him in and you let him roll. Pumpkin's like, release the roster, damn it. I know. And they're taking a while here. We're 2 hours removed and we still don't have the dealio here. What's the dealio? I need the deal. Let me know the deal. All right. We've got the initial 53-man roster is looking like it's released. So let me get this thing up. And we got surprises. All right. Let's get this thing off. We don't need to see that no more. We don't need that thing now. Man, I hate when you got to take stuff off Twitter because they always make you have to change the file to get then back to live. Why y'all gonna make me do that? Let me save it. And let me save it right. PNG, there we go. Okay. We'll go offense here first. And I'm just going to do this like this so I can keep both these up on both sides. So first offensively, we've got, of course, quarterbacks. We know Holani did make the roster. You're only keeping 3 running backs. Charbonnet Walker behind him. Fullbacks, Robbie Oots, Brady Russell make the roster. I was right about Brady Russell making the roster. Good to see there. Cody White, indeed, does enough. So it's Cody White instead of Marquez Valding-Scandling makes the roster ahead of him. Surprise, surprise, surprise. Horton, of course, on there. No shocker there. Derek Young, I had him as charted as making this roster. He does. So good to see there. Biggest surprise probably on this roster we're going to see here of these roster spots, Nick Callerup makes the roster at the tight end position. We'll see if this is going to still be the case with Nick on the roster getting to week 1. This is all obviously still in a very much a state of flux when it comes to that. But interesting nonetheless that Nick Callerup makes the roster and you have essentially 5 tight ends when you include Brady Russell now. Kind of 6 with Oots in his background of playing tight end as well. Kind of interesting enough there. Offensive line-wise, Bradford, Cable, Cross, Jones, Lucas, all expected there. Olatimi expected there. Sundell, Zabel. The 2 maybe surprises weren't sure about were going to be the 2 guys you drafted later on in this draft, Mason Richmond and Bryce Cable. So we do have a couple surprises on there. Most of it's pretty much what we, I think, kind of expected when it was all said and done. And then we've got the defensive roster, which I will show here on my other side for you guys. So from the defensive roster side, linebackers Derek Hall, Jared Ivey makes the roster. Ernest Jones, Tyrese Knight, Boyemafe Nwosu. Then we've got Connor O'Toole is another one of your surprises as a guy who played really good edge. Drake Thomas also is going to make the roster here. DeMarcus Lawrence, Mike Morris makes the roster. So it's not surprising, but you wondered if it was going to be between him and Ivy, and they both kind of make the roster there, which is cool. Safeties, DeAnthony Bell, surprise, is able to make the roster. Ty Akata edges out Jarek Reed there as your 2 surprise safeties. The Seahawks actually keep 5 safeties this year, which last year they kept 4. Kind of interesting. Corners were as I thought it would be. Shaquille Griffin, Joe, Pritchett, Witherspoon, Woolen. So no surprises there. And, of course, you got your specialist that were locked in there. So couple surprises. Nick Callerup, kind of an oddity to see him out there. Cody White, a little bit of a surprise there on that one. Certainly with Connor O'Toole, no one saw that one necessarily coming either on that side of it as far as the reality of life either. But there is your final Seattle Seahawks 53-man roster here. And kind of an interesting one. Oscar, hey, Brandon, the Seahawks need some linebacker depth. Do you think the Seahawks will be interested in Chris Paul Jr.? What about Isaiah Simmons? Did the Rams release Chris Paul Jr.? Wow, Chris Paul Jr. released in the 5th round. That was a guy that I know the Rams were really high on. That's a big surprise there for the Rams, Oscar. I wasn't as big on Chris. Just so small. He plays at like 220 pounds. And I know that these off-ball inside linebackers have really gotten down to like sometimes 230, even maybe sometimes 225. but he feels like a guy at 220 that feels light out there. He feels like a running back, and not a big running back, trying to play the linebacker position. And he's very smart. He's got good instincts. He's certainly got good quickness that you'd expect for a guy at that size. But a guy that just probably just doesn't weigh enough to make it work. And when you watch the Rams cut him there, Oscar, keep in mind that's a Rams inside linebacker unit that's very thin, paper thin. And so they need all the help they can get at their inside linebacker position. So to let him go probably speaks to the fact that just doesn't have enough of the goods to make it go at that point. It's a little bit like kind of the Patriots releasing Strange. It's like your offensive line's been kind of in disrepair. You release one of those guys, probably not a very particularly good player at that point, and just doing kind of a logical assessment of the situation in that way. Isaiah Simmons is a guy that's been often talked about here on our channel and community as a guy that the fans are very much kind of potentially interested in. Maybe understandably so, Oscar, because they're doing some math here. Where Isaiah Simmons, a jack of all trades player, a movement weapon piece on defense, outside linebacker, middle linebacker, edge. Can you play him a little bit of even some safety if you want to run him in that? But never a guy that seems like any NFL team's quite been able to solve him as a player and how to use him best. And I think that's where I would come down the line on him with, is that you get to 7, 8, 9 teams that you've played for and nobody can kind of figure you out. You probably just can't be figured out. I would hesitant to say that that's a little bit of what's going down here. Dalton Henderson, thank you for the $5 donation, Dalton. Love hearing your football knowledge. Can I get your thoughts on Shiloh Sanders? Tough moment for him there at the end of the game, where you're trying to make that roster and you're a back end guy. You get into a really ugly fight, start throwing punches on the football field. And unfortunately, I think both the Sanders kids probably got this a bit, is that teams just weren't going to have patience for those guys unless they were just kind of all around towing the line every which way. Shiloh's case, he's a guy that's a fairly good hitter coming out of Colorado. He's got some of those moments in it. He's a little bit light for me for the safety position. And part of the reason you see him getting in the fist fight on the field there is he's not having as good a job about getting off the tight end block. I don't think he's got a lot of that in his game to do. I think the coverage skills are probably a little bit light with him. I think in the case, it's sort of what you would think with both of these two guys in Shiloh and Shedeur, is that their dad was such a freak show athletically, explosively, speed-wise. You would think that the genes sort of carry down, and that you, without looking at those guys, you would be thinking in your head, he's going to be twitched up. He's going to be explosive. He's going to have hella great ball skills. And unfortunately, with both the Sanders kids, they're more both kind of overachiever types in what they've been gifted naturally by God athletically and from a size standpoint. Both just a little small, a little bit thinner, not, it is kind of what it is with that a little bit. So Shiloh probably is going to be on his way to, CFLville, something like that. If he wants to play Canadian Football League, I don't know if he'll want to, but it's a rough sport in that way. You got to have kind of the goods from a certain size, speed, quotient standpoint, and I don't think that he probably just has enough on it. But thank you for the kind words there, Dalton. I really appreciate it. I love what I get to do, man. I got the best job on earth, I'm telling you. I get to talk football all day. It's unbelievable. Unbelievable. 19 Stray, thank you for the $2 donation. He says, I smell a conspiracy with the Atlanta and the Rams. I'll tell you this, 19 Stray, and I'm a conspiracy guy. I definitely am in my outlook of things, but it makes me somewhat think that a little bit. I can't fully own it and go, that's what's at play here. But when I watched Atlanta do that on draft day, and I was gobsmacked. I'm absolutely blown away by the fact that they would do that trade. You, Atlanta, who've already had so many seasons that you've miscalculated your standing within even your own division, are now going to miscalculate your 2025 forecast, and you're going to do so on the back of taking a risk by flipping a first-round pick into next year's draft, not acknowledging, not looking at, in the very least, all of the teams that have done this in recent years and how many teams have got bitten on the butt. How many teams out there have made these trades saying, we're moving a first-round pick, and all of their fans went, yeah, it's going to be 25, 26. No, it's going to be 30. It's going to be the 32nd first-round pick, right? All of us fans love to do that. Who cares about that first-round pick? We did this with the Jamal Adams trade. Who cares? We'll be picking 26, 32. Whatever. That's like a second-round pick anyway. We gave up 2 second-round picks for Jamal Adams. This is the things that we would be saying at the time. And how'd that work out? Your Seahawks ended up giving a top 10 pick in that Jamal Adams trade. How did the Russell Wilson pick work out to flip to us? We get a Devin Witherspoon top 5 pick because Denver's so sure they're going to be so good with Russell Wilson. How did the Eagles end up with Jalen Carter? The New Orleans Saints are so sure that Trevor Penning is going to be the missing piece for their offensive line, and in year 1. Time and time again, we're watching teams do this stupid stuff. Time and time again. It bites the team that's moving the future first-round pick over and over again. One of the greatest trades in Seahawks history. One of the greatest things Tim Ruskell ever did. Took a second-round pick in that year's draft for a future first-round pick in next year's draft. And that became Earl Thomas. I can't tell you, 19 straight, how many times I see this trade made over and over and over again in the NFL when it's done, and it just seems to bite that team that moves the first-round pick over and over again. When's the last time a team's moved that first-round pick and you've gone to the Super Bowl? Not won the Super Bowl. No team's moving that first-round pick for that future first-round pick and winning the Super Bowl. That ain't happening. That's not occurring. I'm talking actually, it got you to where you think it was going to get you by doing that. And so, whether conspiracy or not, it's just dumb on the surface of it. It's dumb with this Atlanta team, dumb where they're at. There's a hint of desperation to Atlanta where it's like, we think we got just enough, but just maybe if we could just maybe we get a little bit more, just get one more edge rusher. That'll be enough to push us to, are you freaking kidding me? We'll see, though. Maybe I'll be made to look silly on this one, 19 straight, and we get to the end of the year and they've won the division by a long shot, and it looks super smart, It's possible that could go that way too. NFL's unpredictable, but the recent road of carnage of teams that have tried this approach. There's blood and body parts and bones sticking everywhere. HHG, thank you for the $2 donation, HHG. He says, Charbazard, running back 1? No, I mean, they just, obviously with George Holani below him here, this is just them throwing the list up. I don't think that it's representatory of the fact he's running back 1. Kenneth Walker is going to be your running back 1. The talent of this kid, the team knows. The upper end ability of this kid is still very true. Is all of the injury stuff worrisome and something to track and could be something that eventually throughout the course of this year eventually leads to Charbonnet just being the number 1 guy and the team throws up their hands and they're just like, we can't deal with this. Sure, it's possible, but it's not going to be that day 1. And if he's healthy day 1 and Charbonnet's healthy day 1, this is your number 1 running back. There is no running back controversy. And why? Because the ceiling of Walker is still every bit as true as it was when you drafted him in the second round. You have not done right by Walker. You just haven't. You've not opened up the holes. You've not had the offensive scheme in place. Sometimes you've not had the defense there that doesn't then lead you to have to just be passing 24/7 in the early part of his career here. There's been a variety of factors set up for Walker to not find ultimate success. And this year now, maybe, you are turning all of what have been those factors throughout his time on their head. You'll have a defense which will stop offenses, which will keep you in games, which will allow you to consistently run the ball throughout the course of the game. You'll have an offensive coordinator who can not only run a diverse rushing attack, not merely hitting the A and the B gap, but getting to the edges consistently. And that's, by the way, what Walker does well. In Carroll's time here with Walker, this dynamic guy you could use on the edge, this absolutely awesome back to be used out in that place. Well, in his time here with Carroll, he averaged 5.3 yards per carry outside the tackle box on those kind of runs. Outside zone, pitch plays, right? Inside runs, A and B gap between the tackles, 3.8 yard per carry average. But because this is Coach Carroll's offenses, because this is the way we ran them back in the day, you ran 65% of his runs inside on those runs, and you ran 35% on the runs he was averaging 5.3 yards per carry on. This is going now out the window. We're now going to utilize him correct, and because we're utilizing him correct, and because the other outlying factors that have been working against him are now being corrected, including having the best offensive line he's had in front of him since he's been here, if he can stay healthy, you are going to get an ultra-productive Kenneth Walker. Doesn't mean that Charbonnet can't be very productive right behind him on that. but it does mean that the upside of a Walker is higher than a Charbonnet. Charbonnet's maybe more consistent. Charbonnet's a better third down back. Charbonnet's maybe got better hands. You can go through a couple things that Charbonnet maybe does better, but that upper end ceiling is also very true and still remains so. And I think the coaching staff recognizes that in Walker, and that you guys will understand this when we start seeing him pump off more of these consistent 50, 60-yard runs, where in years past, those holes haven't been there for him to make that happen. The early penetration into the backfield, that stuff's not going to happen as much anymore. No, I think Walker's locked in here. I do. I feel very confident about that. Very, very confident. Catalyst, I'm late, but I made it. Glad you're able to make it, man. Jarcadia Wright, sounds like probably going to the practice squad, David. Definitely not on the active roster. Thomas says, Brando, I have a lot of faith in Penix. Yes, the O-line could hurt him, but I think Atlanta could win 8 games. I like Penix as a player, Thomas. So when it comes to Penix, I think, and I said this at the draft, this guy could be a guy that can take you to the promised land. But the key with Penix would come down to one very, very, very important factor. Keeping him clean. Doesn't mean no quarterback you're going to keep 100% clean all the time, but you have to supply him with the offensive line that can get that done. And when he walked in there last year, I was like, oh, that's a good landing spot for him. But as that offensive line for the Falcons continues to take hit after hit after hit, and now you're going to put him behind that line, I think you're creating much more of a probability here that you're going to get him hit more than he should be getting hit. And then you even felt that in the last year with Washington, where a lot of that year with the University of Washington, absent a game here, a game there, very clean in that pocket. Multiple offensive linemen drafted to the pros from that offensive line. And then when he gets to the Michigan game, he starts getting battered and beaten a little bit, and he ends up in the medical tent. And that was kind of the first time that whole year he started to get beat back up again a bit on that. So we'll see. It is just something that is a concern for me. If they keep him clean, Thomas, I'm with you. He can rock and roll. But you've got to keep him clean. And he doesn't have the greatest of mobility in the pocket. And so he's not going to clean it up for you if it's dirty. And I get to wondering a little bit about with this Falcon team if they're going to be able to make that happen for him at this point. Drew Dahlman leaves in free agency. Caleb McGarry's gone for the whole year. They're down basically 2 of their top offensive linemen here to start the year, and that's before we've even begun to play any games. Thrill out, so Bijan Robinson's going to get the rock like crazy? I would think so, yeah. I can't think that you're not trying to just feed him. I mean, to me, the ideal is to get that offense into a 50-50 state, if just because you're trying to keep Penix clean, if just because you're trying to aid your offensive line out a little bit and helping them through there. Say nothing of the fact that Bijan's a guy you took in the top 10 a couple of years ago and you want to get the value out of it. Addicted, hey Brandon, 812s. Just got back from picking up my neighbors at the airport. Any surprise moves before today's deadline? I think you letting MVS go, holding on to Nick Callerup, holding on to Connor O'Toole. I think those are kind of slightly surprises. Cody White, slightly a surprise there too as well, I would say. But I don't know if there's anything yet league-wide I've heard about that's like had me completely thrown off. Yeah, Patrick O'Connell was definitely a surprise too, letting him go. But I think the team just probably feels like they have a lot of confidence they're getting him onto the practice squad. Catalyst, I thought we would cut Bell over Jarek Reed, honestly. We kind of did. Oh, no, we went with Bell instead. Yeah. I was thinking Jarek too. Bell's had a good camp though, like Mari says. And Catalyst says, yeah, they did. He definitely he earned it. He earned the opportunity. Catalyst says Damian Martinez was a massive letdown for me. I thought he was the biggest deal. Me too, man. I thought he was going to look a little bit more explosive, be a little bit more of a tackle breaker. New Black says, funny thing is Darnold has shown more than Geno did before he both became starter here. 100%. 100%. And I mean, I didn't have the chance when the season first ended to look at Sam Darnold's season as closely as I did once the season ended. We signed him enough. You get a couple months now to go back and watch the Viking tape and to see how he found his success last year. And it wasn't just simply driven by the Vikings making everything go downhill. There's a lot of times he had to go uphill to make that success happen last year. And all the more reason it should be impressing people more than it is. And as I've said, guys don't just kind of fall into that season haphazardly. You don't have a coach holding your hand to that kind of season as a quarterback. You turn in that kind of year, you're doing so on the back of being a good QB. And especially if you've been one that's been in the league for a few years like Darnold has, light bulbs probably come on. Life of CB, any interest in Dan Skipper? A little bit. I mean, the line's gotten a little bit thinned out a little bit there. So, you wonder a little bit on that one if, he's maybe not as particularly good because they need the help. It's another one of those, hey, it's like the Patriots situation with Cole Strange where they have a good line to the Lions, but they've also had some losses here the last couple of years on that line. In addition to this offseason, having got like Ragnow retire, I think they lost a guy in free agency too, in addition to that. But I'm open to it for sure. Any offensive lineman out there, life of CB, I'm kicking the tires in. I'm bringing them in. You can. I look at this interior line right now at the guard position behind Bradford, and there's definitely a lot of room for improvement here. This is a little bit. It's not worrisome, but there's a little concern for me right now on the depth with this line. Casey says, I got to say, you're a funny one. Thank you, Casey. I appreciate that, man. Thrill House, I have the most confidence in Kubiak. Guy will be a head coach after next season. I'm in that place too, man. I'm right there. Joe, I learned today, Jalen Milroe, and Tom Brady all have the same size hands. Who would have thought? Oh, I would not have thought. I would have thought Jalen would have been a little bit smaller than Tom. JL says, and now I know why Tom liked those footballs deflated a little bit. Can't get his hands naturally around that thing. You know what I mean? I get it too. 1 second, folks. Drewist 47 says the 49ers room doesn't look good. No, it's they're in tough shape, especially going into week one, Dre West. It may be improved down the line if they can figure out the Juwan Jennings situation, if they can get Brandon Ayuk back to somewhat close to full health strength by the end of the year. But as it stands right now, they've got one of the more worrisome positional groups in the entire league going on with their wide receiver room right now. Life of CB, yeah, I think we should really try for Skipper. With the questions on Abe Lucas's health, I know he's healthy now, and I hope he stays healthy. Any lineman you want to bring in, CB, I'll have like kind of a blanket. I'm with it. You got a couple of rookies in Richmond and Cable do right now. If they go out on the football field, I'm not going to have a tremendous amount of faith in them. I think probably, you might even have, if one of your guards goes down, you might just put Olotimi at center and then move Sundle over to one of the guard spots if it goes down like that. But definitely a concern right now, and a very valid one. Fabrice, how you doing, man? How goes it? Andrew Rezenko, thank you for the $2 donation, Andrew. Says, why no nose tackle rostered again? Byron rookie season, here we go again. I was worried about it this offseason. I was very concerned about it when I saw Hankins was coming back and the team wasn't really looking to target a nose tackle out there in the draft. You walk into this season now where Hankins isn't even on the roster right now. Maybe they activate him before game one, but you have Jaron Reed and Byron Murphy are literally the only nose tackles on the roster. It's a very good point, Andrew. When I hadn't taken as much notice of up until this point, but boy, that's a big deal. I mean, if no Hankins is here, it isn't a matter of at that point whether or not Byron's going to play nose tackle. He's going to. It's just a matter of how much. And hopefully Jaron's ready to take on those duties. Because you're darn right. It's a little bit kinky right now with that And there's not as much of the straightforward pathway to giving the 3-tech spots there to the 3-tech reps there outside of Leonard Williams back over to Byron. It's tough. It's tough. Nose tackle and interior offensive line are kind of the two positions. As much work as the Seahawks got done this offseason, those are the two positions where you maybe just didn't get quite as much done as you would like to get done. And boy, when you're looking at the $35 million of cap space we're currently sitting on, you kind of just do scratch your head a bit and go, we couldn't have gone out there and invested a little bit in either of those two positions, a little bit more. Like there were no options. I don't know. Yeah, that's good note on your part, Andrew. I hadn't noticed that, but that is true. Thrill House Willie Lampkin fell just a bit short. Sorry, Jake. I thought they were going to IR him. I think he's injured right now. Micah says the quarterback from Penn State looks damn good. Exactly, Micah. That's when people tell me and they get a look out on the Arch Manning thing. I go, okay, we'll throw Arch out of it. Drew Aller, Cade Klubnik. Those two guys alone are going to be awesome. Those two guys alone are going to be top 5 picks in next year's draft. Those two guys alone would have been better than Cam Ward in this last draft. They would have gone higher than Cam Ward in this last draft. I think those two guys, if they had been in the prior year's draft, would have gone ahead of Penix, would have gone ahead of Bo Nix, would have gone ahead of McCarthy. They're good players. He's got the size, mobility, big arm, can make every throw in the book. He's going to have started a couple of years at a big major program like Penn State. Yeah. Thomas says, Jake got mad at me for calling him a homer. Thrill says, man, Isaiah Bond got lucky. I thought he was toast. You got to be careful as a prospect. You know, when you're in that draft season and you're right in that draft area, you got to be on your P's and Q's as much as any time in your life. Because you make the mistake there, you could be costing yourself your NFL chance before you even get onto the football field. But it seems like it's worked out for him. Smeagol says, town without a sheriff. I know. Anarchy. Anarchy and chaos. Like it says, Charbonnet's best served chill. There we go. There you go. Stewart, 5 tight ends. I know, man. We're tight end central out here. Immortal E-Tech, no Peely. It looks like it's going to be, it does indeed look like you're going to try to get him onto the practice squad. I would estimate he'll definitely get over there. Jeff Jennings says Benton wants more time with a young offensive lineman. True enough. True enough. Must have seen something in these guys to go with them over some of the other options, to your point of that. Danlo, I don't find Richmond surprising. He can play any of the offensive line spots. He had a good preseason. He was well graded by PFF. You saw him jump out a couple times on tape out there too, to your point. Yeah, I agree. Christian Hayden's probably going on to IR-ish. Surge. I think there's a little bit of some stash action going on with Christian Haynes. So maybe this is one where they go, look, let's give this kid another year in the system. Let's put him on ice and let's figure this out down the line. Sam says no Peely or Bohanna. Wow. I see both probably getting onto the P practice squad. Especially in really considering you only did keep, technically speaking, 3 defensive linemen on the roster. So those 2 guys probably go over there. Unless there's a team, maybe there's a guy on the open market they're looking at they like, though, too. There. That's the one where a Connor O'Toole to me is a guy that's like, eventually before we get to week 1, you're probably flipping out of Connor O'Toole and there'll be another defensive tackle on the roster, I would say. Oots can play nose tackle? Hey, I ain't going to limit him. Empower, what does our nose tackle look like now? No Hankins or Peely here. It's Jaron Reed and Byron Murphy. And Murphy's going to be getting reps from the nose tackle position at this point. It is unavoidable. Unless you're going to rock wide 9 and 2, 3 techs at once. It's the only other way I can think of it working. Chieferton, all the people in here asking about the guys on IR, they have their own spots on IR and don't take up a roster spot. There you go. So Christian Haynes isn't going to take up a roster spot. Hankins isn't going to take up a roster spot. You put him up on that IR and you have him sit like that. That's a way to kind of stash a little bit. Smeagol, Callerup is a guy that they paid extra dough on his UDFA deal. Oh, I didn't know that. So the team seems to be pretty high on him then. Yeah, Haley, I think Gaines is on the IR. Yep. And Okada definitely earned his stripes to make the team. Seahawks Gaming, Jake Bobo, not an IR. Anything is good, right? No, it's great news. You worry about those concussions. You worry about the neck. You worry maybe okay after the hit. Maybe they don't think there was any other problem, just the concussion. Sometimes you get another couple days outside of it. Something gets sore. They got an MRI. It turns out there's a neck. But it does seem like Bobo, tough as he is going to be back and ready for week 1. Yeah, Jeff Jennings-Saubert's a beast as a run blocker. That's a pass blocker, too. He's good all around. That says, I'll be honest, Peely should have made it instead of Okada. We have plenty of safety depth without him. Well, to your point last year, you kept 4 safeties. You're keeping 5 this year. So, yeah, they definitely went a little bit extra there. I think the thing that you do lean to with Okada is that if you look at Emawari, Bryant, and DeAnthony Bell, probably more look at those guys as kind of strong safety types. And you're more looking for more of a pure, not purish, but more of a guy that can lean to the free safety stuff like Love can. And that may be the reason they kept him. DJ, I'm happy to see Cody White make the team just because I think he has showed out for several years now. And when we called upon, and he truly deserves it. Yeah, he's earned it, man. Good special teams player. Had a hell of a final game there. Seems like he's been pretty solid out of training camp practice too, and having some moments out there on the field as well. So you earn in that way. You got to give him props, man. You earned it the hard way. Haley says Luamea wasn't a scheme fit, I guess. No, probably more of a gap guy than a zone guy, Haley. The stuff that he did last year in the run blocking game was built on the back of you running a lot of gap. And that's where he was kind of at his best. The pass protection issues are also mightily big with Luamea. And I don't know if, even as much as you love his run blocking, if anybody really feels with a tremendous amount of confidence in that building that Luamea is going to come far as a pass protector in this league. Kind of is what he is on that, I think. And it's odd, too, because it's a tackle convert to guard. Because you'd think with those guys, Haley, that it would be struggles to run block, good as a pass protector. But it's a little bit of the flip on the opposite with him. Sonny says we have no nose tackle besides Murphy and Reed. You know what that means. Yeah. Let's make our peace with it. RIP to the Byron Murphy 2025 season. I'm kidding. He'll get some snaps over there, but ugh. Thrill out Shiloh will start a podcast, interview his brother and dad every week. There you go. Okay, says Steven Sims on the R alongside Haynes. Hadn't expected that. Smeagol O'Toole might be able to flex to some off-ball stuff. He might be able to. Kind of wonder why they didn't go with Sharif if that's what the intention was to do with him, because it feels like Jamie Sheriff's a better player at that point than him on that. Gunny says something about Shaquille Griffin being back with the Hawks makes me happy. Laughing out loud. Well, he rounds out the cornerback room depth, which you needed. You only get to run with 5 guys on your roster. So you need that depth that you can call upon, and he might very well be your third best cornerback on this roster, which adds even much more to his value. Catalyst, I don't believe that Peely's got an injury. No, I think he's okay. 7 cent. Me and my wife were just saying the same thing. Amen, brother. Let's go. Power Code, does Callerup have special teams value? Never watched him that closely. I don't remember him showing up as far as on the special teams unit. I have the special teams grade from like the last game. I mean, I don't even know if they had him playing special teams, to be honest with you. He's, there he was. He was your 8th highest rated special teams guy in the last game against the Packers. So they got him playing a little bit of it, I guess. Micah says Walker could most definitely be lethal in Kubiak's scheme, and actually think you're right. He is that dynamic. I've been pumping Charbonnet up a lot, but why can't both be good at the same time? Yeah, I'm in complete agreement with you on this, Micah. This is where I stand with it. It isn't one or the other for me. It's that you took these guys as an outlier situation in the NFL. There is no team in the NFL over the last 15-year period, with the exception of one team, that has taken a running back in the first or second round in back-to-back years. So in doing that, you've brought on two tremendously talented running backs, two very capable running backs, two guys that can be difference makers for the position. And I think that that's where a little bit of this should it be Sharp, should it be Walker thing kind of comes from, is that fans aren't used to dealing with where you have two close to kind of hyper talented kind of running backs for the position in the way that they're built. Maybe not hyper talented, but very talented. And so Walker's just got a little bit of an edge in that mark. His explosiveness and big playability, I think something when you look at this running game, folks, and going to training camp and watching training camp practices and the scrimmage games, is that the running game has not always been one here throughout training camp like you might think it to be with the Kubiak scheme, where it's much more of the consistent getting a couple of yards every rush kind of play. It's been much of more of the feast-famine thing where you're busting off big runs, a lot of big runs throughout training camp. Think back to the last game against the Packers. Didn't run the ball particularly great throughout the day, did you? But what'd you do? You busted off that 161-yarder with Jarcadia Wright. So it's an offense that does allow for you to take that one to the house if you've got the back that's got the speed and explosiveness to get there. And that's what Walker does have. Whereas I don't know if Charbonnet is as much built to bust those big runs like Walker can. You give him that 10 yards and he can make it a 20, he'll do that. You give him the 10 yards and you can make it a 20 and they can house it. That's Walker to me. That's just the one little tiny key difference between them. That's just enough for him to edge out Charbonnet with probably getting a bit more touches to be technically the lead back. But both will get touches in this offense, and both are going to be tremendously productive and efficient and effective in this offense. Seahawks gaming, God forbid Kubiak catches a cold, because whoever was calling plays on Saturday, I have no faith in. Yeah, you just need to give him some Theraflu and, juice him up on the meds, give him a steady IV drip on the sideline. I don't care. He could be in a car crash and paralyzed beneath the neck, and I want you putting that guy out in the gurney there right to the side of the field, on the field there. Just have him side-eye looking at the plays there from the neck, or have a guy that you roll to have him look. So he's on his back and he's looking straight up, and just roll Kubiak on his side. And then you go, okay, they're going with the 5-man fronts. I got it. Okay, I got it. Let's call double XY, zebra, double peel, banana on 4. Okay with it? Okay. We got 10 yards, coach. Okay. Flip me over again here. I can't feel my feet. I need you to flip me over. Okay. They're giving us stacked boxes now. I can see it. Okay. We're going to hit them with the hot route. Hit them with some short stuff on the hot. All right. Flip me back. It could be that. I don't care. Whatever you got to do to get this guy in the field, because I do not want our quarterback coach ever calling another game again. Sorry, Andrew Janoko, but you know why. You know why. Empower code, maybe Calerup gets cut after we claim someone. It's possible, and this is not a final roster, to your point. This is a state of flux a little bit for the next week and a half, especially now. Got to consider everybody cuts their guys all at once on this day. So league-wide, you got thousands of guys on the market. It's a lot to sift through for every NFL team, trying to look through every individual one of these players to determine if they could help their roster or not. So in the next week and a half, with every roster in the NFL, it's all in a very high state of flux. And Calerup and a couple of these guys are on the roster right now could very well be knocked off very quickly. Just come a couple days down the line, tomorrow even. Yeah, Sabin sucks. Peely didn't make it. He'll get on the practice squad, though. Jeff, really going to enjoy the cup is washed, receiving room is trash, cutting MVS is mistake. JSN's just a slot crowd, gets to eat some crow this season. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yeah, this is alphabetical on the chart here with it too, as someone else was mentioning above. So I think they're sorting it by last name, essentially. Thank you for mentioning that. Seth says 27 offensive players, 23 defensive players, and 3 special teams. Interesting distribution. There he is. With the defensively, it's because you have a lot of guys that can do kind of different things. Emma Wari can play slot, both safety positions. Byron Murphy, Jaron Reed can play nose tackle and 3 tech. You probably got a little bit of some help and aid in having some extra receiver, having extra offensive players on the roster because of that. Callerup or perhaps O'Toole are being protected for the moment until we feel better about waiving them so we can squad them. I can see that being the way it rolls. Yeah. Is it looking like Uchenna will be ready for week 1? I think it's a coin flip based on how Mike talked about it yesterday. He's got to get out there and practice. And so with all of the guys right now that they're kind of wondering about, I think Hankins is in this territory too. They've got to get to next Monday in the start of practices, and those guys have to practice to get to the games. And with all of those guys right now that you're kind of in the wait and see point, it seems like they're going to wait into next week on all of them to start running them out there to see if they're ready to go or not. So it's all about how Uchenna practices next week, really. And if he can go full bore. Smeagol says Callerup scored some monster run blocking grades during the preseason. Makes some sense why you'd hold on to him with that, if that's some of the reasoning in it. Stewart's is actually satisfied Callerup played so well they thought he might get plucked. Definitely possible. I mean, a lot of these guys you're holding on to is as much as that's a big part of the reason. And to your guys' point on being the high graded guy, he was the second highest rated offensive player for your Seattle Seahawks in this last game, 8th highest special teams rated player in the last game with a 73.8 grade. Seemed to do good all around there as a player in these games. So good points, guys. Great points. Wayne G says, do you think they will go after Parsons? I don't, Wayne. I think the Cowboys are signaling that they're going to hard line this no matter what Micah wants or whether they want to pay what Mike wants. I think that they're going to just get through this season and then see where the things land at that point from a Cowboy perspective. So what I mean by that is you try to grind kind of Mike out through the year. We're not paying you. You'll get through this season. If you do want to be paid, you're going to have to agree to the deal that you and I verbally agreed to without your agent there. You're going to have to take that deal. That's the deal. That's it. We've already negotiated. Micah doesn't take that deal. You get through the year. And then at that point, the Cowboys look to move him. And the thing with that is, to the Cowboys' point on this, are you going to get significantly less if you wait a year to move Micah, even if Micah has a little bit of a depressed year from a productivity standpoint? No. Because right now, when you make a trade for Micah, you're getting him kind of at a late hour. So that the assets will be pretty much equivalent, same for same, if they just wait through a year on him. And they can see if maybe in waiting for that year, something twists and turns in their direction to where maybe he accepts the contract they wanted to make him take. Because they do have a little bit of that leverage in this situation. So, yeah, not going to probably happen. Space, let's go, Brandon. Thank you, man. Max, wow, I love our choices at wide receiver. Not too bad, huh, Max? Not too shabby. Some good special teamers, good all-around guys. Some inside-outside guys. Bill says, looks like they're going to waste Murphy's talents again. Not going to be a happy camper to your point, Bill, if we're going to look at him playing the majority of his snaps back at nose tackle again. It's really, I can't undersell this enough, not the best way to be using Byron Murphy. Bit disappointing. Rampansy, Christian Wilkins will be picked up by a team despite his drama. He's too good of a premier defensive tackle to not help a team. Yeah, somebody will grab him eventually. That's for sure. Dogzilla's okay with Murphy and nose tackle. Seth says, I don't think they're happy with our O-line depth if they're looking at Dalton Risner. No, they definitely would like to get a little bit more steadiness there for sure. CJ Brandon, even if we don't land Risner, we need to add a veteran offensive tackle of some type and kit Callerup. Tackle depth is looking terrible with no obvious backup for Lucas, especially. Cut off your deal there. Sorry about that, CJ. Yeah, I'm a little worried about nose tackle depth too. Josh Jones does give you a true swing guy either way, but I mean, recent years we've had to call upon multiple tackles. We've had to call upon the third guy on the depth chain in that. So only, essentially having what you have right now and what you're trying out there is, a little bit worrisome. A little bit concerning. Seahawks Gaming, I remember when we said the Rams have a bad wide receiver room for week 1 against us and some guy named Puka Nacua went off. Yeah, he did. He did indeed. And that's why I've been referencing a little bit of Horton's got a little bit of those Puka-like vibes in what he's doing. Don't know if he's going to become the player of a new Puka or that's what we've got, but I'm sensing some same kind of situation there in what's playing out here with Torrey that we saw with Puka. Seth says, I'm sorry, but they better designate Jarran Reed as nose tackle more after he just got paid. I hope so, man, Seth. I hope so. And he says, we're wasting Byron's talents. I don't disagree, guys. I'm with you on that. Gunny Hunter Renfro is available. He's a slot-only guy. And your lock stock filled up as far as your slots are concerned right now. Micah Sundell is a healthy upgrade from Olu. Got trucked over right after the hiking the ball, Oluwatimi. Probably indeed. Peter Go Hawks. Thank you for the $2 donation, Peter. If we keep Peely and Bohanna, Murphy will cook GHs. Well, I think even just get another nose tackle out there to free Murphy up so he can do the 3-tech stuff. And between Leonard Williams and Murphy, I mean, you're not going to play Leonard Williams at 32 years old, 75% of the 3-tech snaps. There is room here to rock 50-50 between these two guys and be able to basically turn your 3-tech position into the most productive 3-tech position in the entire NFL. But you need to have a nose tackle to make that happen. And does that mean that Peely eventually becomes active game days to do that role, or Bohanna? We'll see. But I think you guys are onto this, and that this is where this is trending right now with Murphy, and that if you don't have those guys on this roster, he's playing nose tackle. Even if Jarran Reed's playing a pretty significant amount of those nose tackle snaps, Reed can't play 100% of the snaps for the same reason Leonard Williams can't play 100% of the snaps at 3-tech. He's 32 years old. The guy's going to need to be having a little bit of a snap count modified there a little bit. So this is maybe as much of the oddest thing on this roster overall that I look at is the Murphy situation right now and what you're setting up. And I don't quite understand why this team is seemingly at times, as this is setting the stage, and we'll see if it plays out this way, I don't know why they're looking at this player and they're wanting to play him out of position through his first couple of years in this sport, a predominant amount of the time, a majority of the amount of the time. I don't know what the thinking is here, and it seems all born out of the fact that you can't seem to find a capable nose tackle. And that's kind of silly. I'm with you on it, Peter. I think he could cook if you just let him get out of that position. Let him go. Let him ride, you know. Let's get the chains off this guy. Let him run free. Nate, thank you for subscribing to the channel, Nate. I appreciate you for doing that. Do me a favor, folks, hit that like button if you haven't already. Get subbed up like what Nate's doing, as it helps this channel out, helps me grow, and helps me get a little closer to where we're trying to get as far as the goals are with this channel. So thank you, Nate, for helping us get a little bit closer on that mark of things. I really appreciate you for doing that. Welcome aboard the Hawks Nest. Black Thought, Brown Dreams. Thank you for the $2 donation. Didn't have any thing in there on that for you, just the donation itself. So thank you for that. I appreciate it. Very kind of you guys today, all the donations. Ross, let's get that Creed Humphrey guy. They ain't letting him out. CJ says, Brandon, even if we don't land Risner, we needed to add a veteran offensive tackle of some type and kick out. Oh, I read that one already. Agreed. Trenton Puckett says, I'm trying to figure out why we are carrying 6 receivers and 4 tight ends. I can make a guess at this. I'm not saying I know that this is the answer for sure, but just a guess on this, Trenton. Last year, you saw more 12 personnel than we've ever seen in recent NFL history, and being run over 20% of the time. You saw an additional 7 to 8% in 21 personnel or 13 personnel, 3 tight end looks in addition to that. So last year, a third of the time, offenses across the sport of the NFL were running 2 tight end sets, bare minimum. And this trend is only going to go more upwards this year. It's been one of those trends I've really been on as far as saying, watch for this thing this year. This is going to be the continuing adjustment of what happens. It all is born out of the cover 2 shell stuff. So defense does this, offense does that. Defense does this, offense counters with that. Defense then counters to that, offense then counters to this. So offenses want to take big shots, and we're going to throw the ball over the football field. We're going to go and look for these big plays down the football field. Okay, defensively, we got that. We hear you on that. We're going to go to the cover 2 shell. We're going to take the deep stuff away from you. Offenses go, okay, fine. We'll just we'll adjust off that. We'll just dink and dunk you to death. we'll square up on some of the tighter routes in addition to the deeper stuff. We'll just take one less guy off the line of scrimmage to make that happen. Oh, okay. Well, we'll adjust off that by hammering the run game. Okay, go for it. Okay, but we're also going to reinforce how we hammer that run game with your cover two shell looks by getting those two big tight ends down in there. Give us more blockers in that line of scrimmage with that lighter front of your defensive front that you're countering us with so that you can take care of all the passing attack on the back end. So one to the other, one to the other, one to the other. This guy moves here, this guy moves there. So I think what they're showing you here a little bit trend is that they're leaning into this trend that you're going to see more of these 12 and 13 personnel looks than ever before. Because what you're trying to essentially do is you're not just attacking the cover two shell, you're attacking the cover two shell in nickel. Because in nickel, I'm going to tend to rock out that slot cornerback there, right? And that slot cornerback's going to tend to be undersized, and he's going to tend to weigh about 185 pounds. And if I have a tight end who's 235 pounds and he's getting downhill on a slot cornerback that's 185 pounds, he's going to dominate that matchup from a blocking standpoint. So this is just where this trend is going right now for this next upcoming NFL season. Seahawks are just kind of leaning into it. But you're going to see this across the sport, I would say. And you're going to keep seeing it until teams get out of that damn cover two shell look over and over again. Kim Walls, I would like to think they're searching the waiver wire for a nose tackle. I hope so. As you can see in the chat, mentioned many times over in here, it is definitely a big concern of the fan base as it stands right now. Dogzilla, how many of these guys came from the 11 we drafted this year? We got Richmond, Campbell, Royo, Horton, Oots, Milrow. I've got a working count of 7. 7 of the 11. 7, 11. 7-11. 11. Even backdoor little Joe picked up the cash flow. That's my mark on it. Spaces, they're saying the Bobo will be back in pads next week. Let's go. Seahawks gave me LJ Collier is still in the NFL and made a 53-man roster. Cardinals kind of like him. He wasn't particularly highly graded last year for the Cardinals, but they seem to kind of like him out there for some God knows only know why reason. Sean McLeod, has Bobo had any other concussions? Will he miss time? Nope. I don't believe he has. Spiegel says Chenna can legitimately flex to off ball if needed. That'd be cool. He's got that in his bag. I haven't seen him do a lot of that, but if he's got it, that'd be awesome. Sean says, if y'all had to pick the highest upside of the rookies, not counting Milrow, who's at the top? I think Emawari, Sean. I think he's going to be just tremendous. Corbin could not speak more effusively about him when we were meeting up with him at the training camp. And I saw the same in person myself. I think that the upside is to the moon with this kid. CJ Brandon, do you see any slowdown from King Henry this year? I only ask because I keep landing him on all my mock drafts with the 8th pick. He's been one of the very few running backs who's hit that marker of a certain amount of touches to where you tend to drop off the cliff, and he's long past that mark and still continued on very strong. With running backs, man, they go until they hit the wall. And it does feel like to me with Henry that he's going to go, and then when he hits the wall, it's going to be that harsher of a drop-off when it does hit. But they showed last year that they could make that work between him and Lamar, that the read option stuff with him in shotgun, they found a way to make that work and be effective. He seems to still be running strong as ever. So I don't know if this is the year I would say that you're not going to see him still able to, at least just grind his way to 1,000 yards. Maybe not run for 16, 17, 1,800 yards, but at least he can find a way to get to 1,000. He just had too strong of a year last year not to think that he'll at least find some footing here, on that. John May, thank you for answering that and heeding that call like Nate did. I really appreciate you guys subscribing up to the channel, helping us get a little closer to that 20,000 mark. We are kissing it. We're right on the edge. We're just about to pop on over, and you're helping us get to that next stage of things. I really thank you for that, John. Really kind of you. Peter Go Hawks, thanks for the $2 donation. He says, what's your top 3 surprises on this 53 and why? Very easy on this one, actually. Not hard at all to kind of pick out my 3 that jump out to me in this. First off, Nick Callerup had a strong preseason, but you're keeping Robbie Utes on the roster already as a fullback. You've got Brady Russell on the full. You got 2 guys there who could play some tight end if you needed to in a pinch. You're already rocking with Arroyo, Barner, Saubert. It doesn't seem anything close to something that you kind of need on that side of it. So that one's definitely caught me off guard on that one as to team must have seen something in Callerup. That's for sure. The other one would have been Connor O'Toole. Had a strong preseason, created some pressures off the edge there. He was very active. I liked what I saw of him, but I didn't know if I saw enough to overtake a guy like, let's say, a Jamie Sheriff. He's been here for a couple of years. So that one's a surprise. I think in both those 2 guys' case, if we get to week 1 of next week and neither are on the squad by week 1, I'd kind of understand it. I'd go, yeah, that sort of does make sense. I think the last one that would be the surprising one for me on this would probably be DeAnthony Bell. That's between him and Cody White as far as the last 2 for me on kind of a head scratcher. But you kept 4 safeties last year. You're now keeping 5 this year, which is a little bit strange to me. Maybe that's a bit because you're going to play Nick Amawari so much at the slot that you need the other 2 guys as backups just to feel secure about your depth. But that one's a little surprising. And then Cody White making it ahead of like a Marquez Valdez-Scantling, who you weren't going to save a lot of money by releasing Scantling, who's played a lot more of the sport, knows the playbook backwards to front, you would think. But the team just liked what they saw from Cody, like what he brings from a special teams value. So those would be my 3. The real head scratchers to me are the Callerup and O'Toole, but also really young guys who just walked in and the team maybe really likes their futures and where they can develop into. Like they showed you flashes now, but we love where we see this guy having a year in our program and a year in the weight room, and then he's going to be even better than when we come to next year. I could get where they're coming from on that. That's what you want to do with your roster is identify those players with top side. Maybe they're not at that top side, but that you see that they have it in them, and then you trust in your process as a team to get that out of them long term. Blake says we have no nose tackle. Just a bunch of 3 techniques. Banana the bad guy, what about the defensive tackle from Notre Dame, Riley Mills? He is also still going to remain on the IR. He's going to miss at least the first 6 weeks of the season. But that was also part of the plan when you drafted him, part of the acknowledgement of what was going to go on when you took him. Stuart says, how many late round O-lineman choices making the team? I'm impressed. Great draft. Richmond and Cable do making the squad. And they had to have impressed to have gotten it. There was a couple other guys that were duking it out with there. So more guys that I think that were about as much of where they will be in the future, like I just talked about, and where you're projecting guys to go, less to necessarily to do with exactly right where they are right now, and more that you like their fitness system, you like the upside that they're going to have long term. Doesn't mean they're going to be stars long term, but that you maybe have some sort of quasi confidence that these guys can round into becoming starters. Blake, I think Jaron Reed's going to be your starting nose tackle, Blake, come day 1, but you are going to still get some of Byron Murphy in there. And this is a bit of a guess on this part that Jaron's going to be, playing more of that. Seahawks Gaming, top 3 positions on the Seahawks, D-line 1, 2 corners, 3 running backs. I like it, man. I agree with that. Yeah, Jeff, they'll slide some of these what's onto the practice squad. That's right. What? Grandizer Hawks Brando, hope all is well. How you feeling about these Hawks cuts? How much do you see it changing? Big moves or small ones? I think that there's going to be some smaller moves around this. I don't think there's going to be any big moves. I think if the Hawks were looking to make a big trade or bring a big addition on, I think they would have done it before this point. So I think you'll see them maybe look at some guys around the league that they like for what they could maybe bring to the squad, and they'll cut a couple guys out, bring those guys in, but it'll be pretty small kind of low end stuff there. Arsom, nose tackle, is not going to be a big part of our defense. I see us going with some 4-man fronts with DEs playing edge. So like Williams, Murphy, Reed, Lawrence is going to get snaps with no outside linebackers. Possible way you could go with it. You could run some pure 3-4 looks at times. Maybe that's a way to kind of mitigate some of this too as well. I will say that would be a transition and change this year from what you ran last year. Last year you ran traditional 3 tech and 1 tech easily somewhere in the neighborhood of like 90 to 95% of the snaps. So if you're altering away from that this year, then that's very much a different direction than what you went last season. And Riley Mills on the team, but with Riley Mills being a bad guy, he suffered the torn ACL at the end of the season last year with Notre Dame. You drafted him understanding it was going to take him into maybe halfway into the year / you might punt this whole season on Riley Mills. And you did that because you thought you were getting a top 50 rated player in the 4th round. Cam Walls, Peely went unblocked for 1 play and got so much hype from it. He's played pretty well throughout this preseason. I got to watch in person Cam on the berm on a couple of practices, and then I got to watch him also flash in the scrimmage game as well. So he's had a very good training camp outside of just that safety. And I've had a couple of people I've been able to talk to who were in person at other practices, I weren't there, who also spoke to him looking good and showing up. Judah, have they decided to put Sundell at center yet? Not announced that yet. I'd imagine they're going to probably wait on that one, if just for the reason of to make the opponent have to kind of wait to know who it's going to be. Black Thought, Brown Dreams. I think that's why they paid Reed to come back, to play 1 tech, to free up Murphy to play the 3. I think so as well. That's my I logically and reasonably think it's going to happen, and that's also my hopeful thinking in that will happen as well. Our guy Bryce Coots in the house, the Hawk's Eye with Bryce Coots. If you guys can do me this favor, just do me this right now. We got over 300 people in the chat here. And that is, if you can go over to the Hawk's Eye, it's new here on YouTube. Bryce Coots is just broken away here from the Hawks Zone. So it's going to the Hawk's Eye with Bryce Coots. So if you can, for me, do me this favor and get subbed up to his channel. Let's help get him kick-started up because he's having to start basically from square one. They've been going for a couple of years on Hawk Zone, and you got to go back to start from kind of square one from his standpoint of things. So please do me this favor and do give him some love out there, getting subbed up to the Hawk's Eye with Bryce Coots. He drops a big old $20 donation, Canadian money here, $20 Canadian. I thank you for that, Bryce. I really appreciate you for that, brother. He says, what's up, Brandon? How you doing, man? We will have lots to talk about tomorrow. We will indeed. And what is Bryce also mentioning about tomorrow with that? What is he referencing there? Well, I'm glad you asked. We're going to be doing a new show tomorrow. So we're having a brand new show kickoff tomorrow on all of our channels here. So it's going to be presented and pushed out on all of them on that side of it. This is going to be, if I can get this stupid thing up here. I can't get it up here. Hold on here. There we go. So tomorrow, 6 o'clock Pacific Standard Time, you're going to be getting the Seahawks Syndicate. A new show at the end of every month. Last Wednesday of every month, we're going to be doing a hookup. We'll probably be going more and more with time on this one, but we just want to kind of warm you guys up on this one. It's going to be coming at 6 o'clock Pacific Standard Time. So do be keeping an eye out on all of our channels on that side of it. The Seahawks Syndicate, Bryce, me and Dan Viennes, Seahawks Forever, and then Mookie Alexander with field goals. Going to be hooking up, trying to discuss what these cuts mean, where the Seattle Seahawks team's going. Really looking forward to that, Bryce. I thank you too, man, for the big fat old donation on your side of it, man. Very kind of you doing that. And I'm looking forward to it, man. First of what will be many shows, hopefully in the future, and hopefully one that people really do love a lot. Really looking forward to have a chance to chop it up with different guys this year in that way, and pick your guys' brain and where you stand. You always get a better perspective the more smart minds you have turning over what's going on with your football team. That's for sure. But do folks, again, please get subbed up to the Hawk's Eye. with Bryce Coots is I'd love to get him right back over that 1,000-yard marker, 1,000 subscriber mark really quick, and just get him cooking along and cooking going because he does great work, and we're gonna be working together a lot here into the future on this. I really appreciate you though, Bryce. Hope you have a good one, and we're definitely going to have quite a few things to talk about with this roster, the surprise additions onto the roster, the surprise cuts, the things like the nose tackle position and what it's going to mean here for this upcoming season, being that you just have Byron Murphy and essentially Jaron Reed is your only guys right now on the roster. So we'll have a lot to talk about. And who knows, maybe even Hawk's Eye, Bryce, we might even have a trade or a couple of other additions here by John here today to even make it even more intriguing. But do, folks, please keep an eye out. 6 o'clock tomorrow, Pacific Standard Time. We'll be on live on all of our channels with the Seahawks Syndicate kicking off its inaugural run. Very kind of you though, Bryce. I appreciate you, brother. Hope you're having a good one. Trenton Puckett, thanks for the $5 donation. Trenton, I appreciate that. He's dropping his first super chat on the channel. He says, thank you for that, man. That's very kind of you. You guys are unbelievable in your support here to this channel. Just absolutely very, very kind of all of you guys. It's not lost on me. It's the good graces of your own heart. You guys give this out. And I know we're in a tough time right now, economically speaking. Everybody is a bit. So really, really appreciated you guys, all the love and support you guys give to this channel. I do really thank you for it. Very, very kind of you. He says, don't you miss a guy like Al Woods? Even in his 30s, he could not be moved. A brick wall. Al Woods gave you one hell of a couple seasons in there, and a guy you go, man, I wish we could have gotten this guy in his 20s for how good he seems to be in his 30s, and maybe a guy that played his best football in his 30s when it was all said and done. In addition to that, and I'm missing an Al Woods big time today, right now. I really would have liked to have been able to see the team go into this offseason and attack a quality nose tackle. Spend a little bit more money than maybe they would like to get one. I'm not talking multi-year, maybe give them a little bit more extra on a short-term deal, but get a guy in here who could be what you were hoping Hankins could be last year, which that's what the team was trying to do, Trent, with Hankins. Guy's 32, 33, maybe he can give us an Al Woods kind of return here. He wasn't really able to do that. He was kind of out of gas. He kind of seems out of gas right now with not even playing any football throughout training camp. But I think that the thing that held you back on this one, Trenton, is the same thing that held you back from finding the quality interior offensive lineman on the open market. There just wasn't one to be had. There was just no real good quality guys out there. And you were picking through so many also-rans and back-end guys that you just kind of probably shrugged at one point or another and said, well, there's just nothing that we can really do about it. I do think it's a little weird with this draft that there were some nose tackles in the draft you could have grabbed, but maybe the team didn't have as much confidence in those guys. You know, be it the Stackhouse or the Maryland kid that was out there, Jordan Phillips. Maybe the team looked at those two guys and they go, we don't think they're going to be particularly good. Could be that as well. But yeah, I'm missing Al Woods right now, Trenton. Yeah, I could use that stabilizing force in there. And again, all in the neighborhood of the driver here is not as much of that I'm worried about the nose tackle position being a weakness of the team, or we're not going to be able to stop the run. This all is coming from the place of the faith, ultimately, that Byron Murphy can be a game wrecker from the three-tech position, that he can be a monster from the three-tech position. He is not a monster from the nose tackle position. He is a functional nose tackle. He can be a dynamic three-tech. And this was the guy that John Schneider drafted a couple of years ago saying this is the best defensive player in this draft. And he didn't mean that this is the best defensive player in this draft because of what he can do from the nose tackle position. He said he's the best defensive player in this draft because he can be absolutely ultra productive as a three-tech in this league. So it's just all born out of that. Plain and simple for me. Plain and simple. But I also can understand when you're between a rock and a hard place. I can also understand when it's us as fans like to think of things in a vacuum, that there's just 30 nose tackles on the market that are all quality this offseason. Just take your pick. Instead of it being like, you know, you dig in your pocket and you're like, I know I got a $5 in here somewhere, and you pull it out and you got a golf tee and a wrapper and a receipt. You're like, that's all I got in here? I know I grabbed a 5 and 10 off the table when I went out the house. Where'd it go? Where'd it go? Just wasn't anything out there really, Trent. What are you going to do, you know? What are you going to do? AA Joss, thanks for the $5 donation. Hey, B, predictions on which of our cuts gets claimed? Ooh, great question there. Really good question there on that side of it. Well, I think Marquez Valdez-Scantling does go out there and he does find a home. I think some team is going to pick him up. That's for sure. Sa'atoa Lamea might be a guy out there that somebody takes a look at as well with what he did as a run blocker last year. I think he's definitely in play. Jarek Reed's a guy that, Raiders with Carroll there and how much he values special teams. I could see Jarek Reed going to the Raiders. I kind of could see the Raiders grabbing one or two guys, to be honest with you. Maybe Jamie Sheriff. That would probably be about it. O'Connell's a possibility too, because he's been solid. Team like the Raiders need linebacker help. That could be a team that, that's a guy that could be targeted by them. Those would be my guys. Those would be the main guys there, Josh. I see 3, 4 maybe onto other rosters right now as it stands. Thank you for the donation, brother, for the $5. I'll try to think if there's somebody else that jumps out to me here. But I think that would be about it. Maybe Tyreek Smith. The Cardinals once grabbed him, but I mean, you were able to get him last year for nothing, deep into the year. So I think that'd be the list for me. I'll go with those guys. Final answer. James Stradley, what are we doing about nose tackle? It's going to be Jaron Reed starting. It's going to be Byron Murphy backing him up as it stands right now. Could change by the time we get to week 1, but as we sit right now with what we know, knowing Hankins is still not yet practicing, you're probably running with those two guys. If we have a game tomorrow, these would be the two guys you're rolling with. Sean McLeod, I like Wright. He's not the best at anything, but he's a ball player. There we go. Right. Trying to see who you mean by right. Like spacing here. I think you mean Knight. Maybe you meant Knight. Or maybe you meant White. Garth Knight's been on our roundtable shows addicted. He sometimes isn't out there for the early day stuff. I think he's got to work and stuff. So he's around though. He's kicking around. I thought Brown Dreams. I think that's why they paid Reed to come to play 1 tech to free up Murphy to play the 3. Yeah, I think so too. That's where I'm leaning with this as well. Mr. Kane says, I like the water bottle there, Mr. Kane, 2.0. Yes, sir. You can get this at the shop right now, the Hawks Nest water bottle. Oh, it keeps it so cold. John Lugo, maybe there's a big trade coming. It's very much a possibility, John. Hard to know when these things are coming down necessarily, and you do have a lot of cap space you're sitting on. That's for sure. So our Hawks Nest, from what I've seen now, from all released cuts, the most interesting waivers, in my opinion, are defensive end Andre Carter, guard Cole Strange, linebacker Chad Muma, and a linebacker Isaiah Simmons. All very interesting names on there, for sure. I don't know if an edge will be one we'd be interested in, but the other 3 guys are certainly potentially in play. You'd have to think Mike looking at Isaiah Simmons guy and all the things you can do with him. That certainly would appeal to Mike, you'd think. Joshua Saunier, 2 fullbacks. Yes, sir. You lose one, you want to be able to go to another one, that's for sure, and not miss a beat. So they're keeping a little bit of protection. It speaks to a bit of how much your intention is going to be to run those fullback sets this year. Joss, we won't face any crazy good offensive lines like last year, Lions, Bills. Maybe that's why no nose tackle. Maybe that's why no nose tackle. That was a tongue turner there. Yes, that's good point. Good point. Indeed, you think through the schedule and you're not necessarily facing a ton of teams. I'd say the Buccaneers would be one of those teams I would put in there. They definitely have an upper crust kind of offensive line. But you're right. You're certainly not going to face a murderer's row of great offensive lines that can just take it to you if you don't have a nose tackle. It's a good point. James says, what they plan on wasting Murphy's true talent and have him play nose again this year? Maybe. And they may have somebody in mind here too. It's kind of early to say for sure on that. I just can't think they're going to trot that out the same way again next year. Joshua says, looks like they're serious about being a tough running team. Should be fun. Amen. Amen. Dig Brandon, isn't it true that Jerry Jones can slap the franchise in 26 and 27? I mean, he can. I don't think he's going to let it get to that. I think he's willing to let this push a year like it is right now. Partly because he knows that signing Micah or not signing Micah right now is not going to make a whole hell of a lot of difference for that Cowboy squad that's going a whole hell of a lot of nowhere this year. So he just looks at it like, well, this year's a punt anyway, essentially as a franchise. So let's try to just see if we can outlast him on this and get him to come back to the table for what we want him to pay him and make it work. And if we can, and we get to next offseason, then we'll just maximize the returns at that time. And then they'll have a better understanding of where their Cowboy team is at in general too, on top of that. To try to give Jerry a little bit of some credit. Stewart says, we're number 1 in the league in tight ends. We are. Nobody's got more tight ends than us. Nobody. The guy back in the old school 80s movies where the move used to be you had the trench coat and you open the trench coat and you got a bunch of watches on each side of your trench coat. Like, which one you want? Which one? We got Rolex? We got Timex? What you want? What you want? We're like that with tight ends right now. Maxwell says, Corbin Smith, Seahawks are looking for another nose tackle, according to him. Okay. So that's where I said we can't freak out quite yet. We got to let it play. Let's see where it plays through another week. Maybe they've got a move in mind they're going to make here. Maybe there's something they're thinking about that doesn't make as much sense to us on the front. Gwen says, maybe they're just betting on being ahead so often and playing the clock so well that they don't need to defend the run that much. I love it. There we go. Thrillhouse, why did we get rid of Poona Ford? Well, he didn't play as well for us at the end as he played for the Chargers last year, I would say. And I don't think that the team really felt like, as they made him ask him to make the change at the time from the nose tackle to 3-tech role, that they were getting as much productivity out of him as a 3-tech at the time for what he was going to cost or what he had cost. And so, they just said, all right, we'll call it a day on that. But, I mean, he had a real career resurgence there with the Chargers last year. CJ says, with us having Barner, Arroyo, Saubert, and Russell as pseudo 4th tight ends, keeping Caller up over Peely or even Haynes baffles me. More obvious depth needed in those spots. Yeah, me too. Kind of strange. CJ. But again, that's where I think the change will probably come in when we get to game 1 on this, somehow or another. Teddy says the Hawks really need to work on some better corners, not feeling too good about Shaq, Griffin, and Pritchett. I think Shaq's a capable guy. I don't think he's going to, be a lockdown guy for you out there. And I think, to your point, Teddy, if you get to next year's draft, I think one of the positions you're going to be most looking at is going to be an outside corner. That's one of the higher priority spots. But Nehemiah did come forward this preseason and look improved. And in Shaq, you kind of know what you're going to get. You may not get a high ceiling player there, but I think you're getting a decent enough floor in what he can give you on that side. The other thing too with this is you'll have a little bit of Emowari there playing slot for you, Teddy. So it's, you'll have Witherspoon, you'll have Woolen on the outside, Emowari in the slot. That does change the outlook of this a little bit too, where those guys being Shaq and Nehemiah now play less snaps when you're rolling in that way. Max says Shaquille was always pretty good at covering for us. Maybe Shaq learned how to turn his head around for the ball. So he's going to be amazing if he covers like he used to. There we go, Max. There we go. Seahawks Gaming. Steve Sims got cut. Who's our punt returner? Torrey Horton. The man named Horton. Lucky 1487. Crazy headline on the 49ers website. Seahawks just gifted 49ers a perfect Brandon Ayuk compliment after sudden release. That headline is amazing. Oh my God, that is amazing. I can't even be mad about that. That is awesome. Seahawks just gifted 49ers a perfect Brandon Ayuk compliment after sudden release in MBS. The clickbait is strong with these ones. That's awesome. CJ, I think we may be the only team with 2 listed fullbacks in the 2025. I love it. Yeah, you guys all play your new school football. We're going back to old school out here, CJ. Let's do it. Mick says it looks like it was a smart decision to get rid of Howell. The Vikings got rid of him immediately and brought in Carson Wentz. Yikes. Yeah, it's certainly more confirmation of Sam. I think Sam got broken in Washington in that year. I think Eric Bieniemy broke him. I don't know if he'll ever be the same. Morgan, cool to see Ivy and White make it, man, for sure. Like you say, both guys that showed up in practice in the games, they worked their tail off, did everything you could ask prospects to have to do to earn their spot on the roster. And you want to reward guys like that. And they did so, which was very, very cool. Frank Pepe, so to chime in on the fact teams are going more 12 and 21 personnel, do you think Witherspoon will play more outside corner? Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So it's a bit of a mitigation factor. Like I talked about, that slot corner tends to be into that 5'9", 5'10", 185 pounds. You look at Woolen, where is he? 6 foot, about 185 pounds. Now, Woolen is a freaking honey badger. I mean, he's a guy that will absolutely play much bigger than his size. But now, here's where Seattle can mitigate some of the heavy 12 personnel with this, because now you move him to outside and you bring in an Emawari to play slot. And now you're getting a guy with linebacker-like size down there in there to counter those 12 personnel looks. Now you got a guy who can theoretically fight off that tight end block and still go and make that play. He's not going to get swallowed up by some big old blocking tight end. So that's what I've been anticipating that transition is going to take into play this year, Frank. Partly driven by the little bit of the sub-weakness that you've had at the outside corner position, partly then driven by the 12 personnel and the 21 personnel and the 13 personnel usage, and then partly driven by how good Nick Emawari has been since showing up on the scene here. All of it collectively kind of coming together. Charles, I'm surprised they kept the 4th tight end with Russell, capable of playing tight end. Yep, it is a little bit of a surprise, but I think it's also just an indicator, too, of how much of the intention is going to be to play 12, 13, 21 personnel. That there's going to be a heavy onus of this offense. You might end up playing 35, 40% of your snaps in those kind of looks. Legit. Calm Cow, I think it looks good on JSN, on John Schneider, that he cut MVS and cutting a mistake, which at the time it wasn't, and not doubling down on it. Yeah, money shouldn't play a factor in the role at the end of the day on this, especially for a guy that's a 1-year deal. $3 million is not that much up against the salary cap. Losing $1 million or $2 million here, in order to keep the strongest possible roster, the best players at the end of the day, that's what you do. And there's a crapshoot nature to this. There is we don't know if those young guys are going to develop nature of this. We don't know that Torrey's going to be that good. And so, like you say, it wasn't a dumb decision to take Marquez when you did. He was, as much as anything, kind of an insurance policy if the youngsters could not take flight. The youngsters have taken flight. Bobo's looked really good in this new offense. You're secured, you feel good, you pivot off. Makes sense. Well said. Life, if they have a traditional starting running back, I'm going to be mad. Use the depth to our strength and split snaps like Detroit. Hey, mother effing men. You folks are as smart as ever here in the chat in your outlook of it and these kind of things and how you speak about them. And I can't agree more. This isn't about a starter or this starter or that starter. It's really about getting 2 guys each about 200 touches for the season. That's what you'd love to have happen here. Both those guys end up at the end of the year with 200 touches. We're going to have a dominant football team. We'll have run the ball really, really well. And at that point, it doesn't really matter who starts or who doesn't then. It's just that you have really ultra-productive backs, whoever is out there. You don't miss a beat if you got to go to a backup. John May says, okay, I'm a little annoyed letting Reed go and O'Connell, and is a surprise. Only 3 running backs? Weird. But the fact that they kept Ivy and O'Toole completely makes up for any possible criticism. Yes! Let's go, man. Let's go. And yeah, a little surprising there. I think with O'Connell, you feel confident you get him onto the practice squad. Reed, hard to say on that one. Just it came down to him and Okada, I think, and Okada just did a little bit more. Just got a little bit more in his bag, especially making that crazy interception at the end. But I'm okay with the 2. Makes sense at the end of the day. There's always going to be some surprises, and it is, when you're talking about O'Toole and you're talking about Ivy, these are kind of the right in that back end of the 50-man roster too. So that's where it can be a bit of a state of a fluctuation. Yeah, Stuart, the one thing this roster conveys, to your point, like you say, is they're going to run the ball, undoubtedly. C. Lord Bob, I hope Ivy takes advantage of this opportunity and works his butt off because I think there is more in the tank with him. Me too, man. Me too. Very interesting player. And one of those guys I told you guys, I always try to target like 2 to 3 undrafted rookie free agents where I go, look at these guys in particular. One of these guys is going to make some noise because John just tends to be that way where he's going to find one guy who's going to do something for you in the UDFA territory. And Ivy was one you could see. It's a little bit like Horton. The reasons this guy drops in the draft or the reasons this guy doesn't get drafted have to come down to really one particular reason. Not 5, not 6, not 10. One real paper-thin reason as to why they dropped off being how he tested. So because you can't run right around a cone, you aren't a good football player? No. Come on. But that's why he dropped. That's why we got the opportunity to take him now as we do. John says, I would have kept Reed over Bell, but I'm guessing there's a special teams case to be made there. A little bit. They went a little bit more. If you remove Emawari and just consider Emawari kind of as much as anything, slot corner, weapon piece you use around the line of scrimmage at times in that, then you go back to more of your traditional outlooks of this a little bit. I know you play split safety and you ask these guys to do a variety of things, but okay, Kobe's your strong. D'Anthony Bell's your backup strong. Julian Love is your starting free. Tayakata is your backup free because most of what Tayakata does post-snap is going to be traditional free safety stuff. So when it comes to Jarek Reed, he's a little bit more cut from the cloth of a free safety background. And so that's a bit of the combo there to kind of keep in mind on this one a little bit. And we are going to start to put a bit of a button on this one here as I got to go run and grab some food because I've got a 6 o'clock show with the NFC West Roundtable. So if you guys got a couple last questions and whatnot, we'll kind of get these through as we got a lot of shows lined up this week. So Keon Lund, thank you for the $5 donation, Keon. And a double donation from Keon, man. It's good to see you in the house. Thanks for the donations. Appreciate you. Very kind of you, brother. Do you think Darnold has any shot at repeating his performance from last year? Or do you see him doing more of a 3,200, 25 touchdown, 12 interception spread? I would say, Keon, if you had to make me pick between one of those two areas, I would say I would lean much more to last year than to what you're pushing out as far as especially the 3,200 yards passing. I think that he easily is going to eclipse 3,500 yards and that he probably is somewhere between 3,500 and 4,100. Somewhere in that territory. Now, for the touchdown interception spread you talk about, I think I could see the touchdowns potentially go down a little bit because the Vikings weren't as much a good running team, and so they were a little more pass happy. So when they scored and they were in the red zone, they were going to lean a little bit more on Sam to get it done for them down there. Whereas with us, I think we're going to be much more of trying to run the ball when we get down in the red zone. So the touchdowns will probably come down. I don't know necessarily that the interceptions will go up. Some of this depends on the volume-based nature of how many times he's got to throw versus last year. So in general terms, I think he's going to repeat what he did last season. Maybe not quite hit the high water marks, touchdowns and yards passing, but he's going to be closer to that than your other one. And it's a great question. It really is a great question on that of which one we might be falling into. But I think he's turned the corner here, which is kind of at the heart of your question, Keon, is he aided by the supporting parts he had last year, or has he kind of turned a corner in his development? I tend to think he was certainly aided by the parts last year that he had at his disposal, but I also do think that he has turned a corner here, aided by having the time in the league to do so, aided now by truly being given another opportunity, or last year being given a true a chance at a place that's not a faltering environment, that's not an environment where any quarterback in there is going to go fail, but instead set up for some success and then able to really pogo stick his way off the back of that in a major way. Keon Lund, thank you for the $5 donation as well. The double dip dono, Keon, you're awesome for that. Seeing that D-line written out actually makes me go, damn. Marcus Lawrence, Mike Morris, Byron Murphy, Jaron Reed, Leonard Williams, Derek Hall, Boye Mafe, Chenna Nwosu. You're stacked up tall, you're stacked up wide, you're stacked up deep. You got it all on this defensive line. The only thing you're missing is a nose tackle. But you've got edge, you got edge depth, you've got 3 techs for days. I mean, say nothing of if you eventually get Riley Mills into the mix at some point this season and what he can do to help out that defensive line group. Mike Morris is seemingly getting little bit by bit every year, just a little bit better. I'm not saying he's come some huge far step forward, but maybe he's now finally ready to come in there and give you some impact this season in addition to that. So it's a defensive line that's you got to lean on this team as a strength of your team. You really do. These guys have got to carry the water in many respects. So hopefully the nose tackle role's figured out one way or the other with it, but you've absolutely got prime guys across the board. This is as deep a defensive line as you've had here going back to the Legion of Boom days. The last time you were able to not only run the top end, but the depth at teams 10 years ago like you were able to dominate and thoroughly dominate at that. Guys are going to be able to be fresh. You're not going to lose any impact if you have one guy go to the bench versus another guy. It's really where this team has got to kind of drive this thing home, is off the back of that defensive line depth, Keon. Damn is right. Damn. That's right. Gonna drop the sunglasses down to the bottom of your nose, Ooh. Noah Lansing. Thank you for the $2 donation, Noah. He says, I'm slightly surprised that Peely and Bohanna didn't make it. Yeah, the fact you don't have a nose tackle here on this roster as it kind of stands right now, outside of Jaron Reed or Byron Murphy, is one of the biggest surprises we've seen, for sure. I think that in Peely's case, they just do really believe they can get him onto the practice squad, and that was really the thing that ended up pushing. It's kind of like O'Connell and Peely both had the same thing going on. Both those guys had done enough to earn the roster, but you had other guys that you were unsure of if you let them go that they would get plucked away like an Ivy maybe. And so you held on to them and you said, let's keep the guys in the ranks who can make it to the practice squad, and we trust that they will. We'll see if this is proven to be the case with those two guys. But I do think that that's what the team is thinking here, Noah. But you're not the only one. There's more than a few folks here that are kind of scratching their head a little bit about the direction you took here when it comes to the nose tackle position in particular. That's for sure. Philip says, suck to acknowledge we missed with Christian Haynes. Yeah, it hurts. It hurts. This is one, though, that I won't rake the team over the coals as much, Philip, because when it was looked at with Christian Haynes, he was universally looked at, I think, by many different teams as a very safe right guard in that draft, as a guy that should have had a high floor. And we drafted him and came to find that he didn't have a sure high floor. But I think that that's a mistake many other NFL teams would have made. And so therefore, from my perspective, a little bit more understandable that you made it. WD Ford, I love Bryce Coots. Me too, man. Bryce is good people. And I'm really looking forward to getting a chance to work with him on a regular basis. Hopefully his channel can kick right up and he can catch right back up to Hawk Zone real quick here this season. Let's help him get there. William Tarkowski, AB, are they going to get a big nose? I hope so, William. I'm praying. I'll be praying about 4 times a day, I think. Jay Melfair says, I see a few moves that look a lot like don't want this guy to get picked up on waivers choices. That's how I'm seeing it too. Yeah, I'm seeing it the same way. Kelly says the other Kobe Bryant was released from his team. Wow, both Kansas corners got the boot. Kobe Bryant and Mello Dotson, man. What happened? Tape was so good. College tape was so good. Karen says, I don't think nose tackle is anything we need to focus on. Only that the interior D-line does look generally low on beef. Little concern, that's for sure. AI, Jared Verse was the best in that draft. Remember, I said he looked like Max Strong. That is who I wanted. He certainly has been the best defensive player out of that draft, AI, and a guy that might be a defensive player of the year candidate when it's all said and done this upcoming season. Brian Toa Lamea was a fan favorite of mine. Sorry to see him go, but it is what it is. I liked him a lot too, man. Tough. Very, very tough there. We got Mookie in the house. Where's Mookie at? I just lost her. I just saw Mookie's name here. Mookie. Oh, there we go. Mookie says, Mookie, think they're adding a nose tackle soon or just signing Peely after he clears waivers? Yeah. And that would be the position of any of the positions on this roster that I would say, Mookie, to your point, that is likely to be the one that you're going to see change. And in addition to in the next week and a half, another nose tackle added into the mix would probably be what I would see in the way that they go. Agreed. You just can't see him running with how it is right now. Mr. Dog, I drafted K9 in my fantasy league. I think he's going to have a big year. Finally, a decent O-line. I can see it, man. I see the same thing. Trenton, hey B, can you give a breakdown of Desmond Watson? I know he's overweight, but I'm wondering if he could be intriguing. Unfortunately not. He's at too big of a size, and I think that I'm never a guy that likes to go down to the simple very often, but if I have a guy that can't get himself in shape in college, and then he's got an NFL chance to go play, but he needs to go lose a significant amount of weight to have his opportunity in the NFL, and he cannot even get himself to lose the weight to get onto the practice field, to practice, to earn his way onto the roster, I think that that's a dead-on giveaway that you have a guy that has a real struggle with being able to control himself and maintain what he needs to maintain in order to be able to play. And you can't go out there at 460 pounds and play. You're just going to be too slow to do it at the NFL level. I mean, it's nice to be big, but you gotta be more than just big on that. So with Desmond, he's a guy that's caught a lot of people's imagination, Trenton, in a major way. But it's a place where, dude, you can't lose weight. You're a professional athlete. That's a ridiculous place to be. That's a I have zero self-control place to be. And if you have zero self-control, then you're probably not a particularly strong worker. We just come back around to like, well, you're big, but you got to have the other things you bring to play with that size that can tap into that potential you have. John May says he's definitely not going to have last year's statistical season because they're not going to be throwing the ball as much or as far. It's all part of the plan. Well said. Agreed. Mitt McFurr, would Kenyon Green be a fit in the scheme? He was a former first-round pick a couple of years ago. And John May says, where the Eagles cut Green. Essentially cutting Green to hope that what they were looking at with Kenyon Green is to sort of take the same approach that they took with Micah Becton and reclamate a former first-rounder. It's worked for Roseman before. But I think that when he doesn't get through there with the Eagles, that's probably an indicator that not a particularly good player. And he had, I think it was an awful year last year I think it was the Texans, wasn't he? Just kind of an open door for the position, just walk right through. So Kenyon Green, definitely former first round pick, but hasn't played particularly well. And probably a guy that just a little busty. He's a little he's a little Dolly Parton. You know what I mean? Just a little Dolly Parton. A little busty. Save the Geese. What nose tackle would even be available that's a starter? I don't know that there's one really out there right now, Save the Geese. It still remains pretty thin. I haven't seen all the cuts yet for today, so I got to kind of peel through the list and see if I can find something that jumps out, but it is a little bit lean right now. John says, I guess the reality is that Holani always going to be the third guy, and he would have been the fourth if not for Kenny Reck and his knee. Yeah. He makes this roster because Kenny McIntosh is injured, to your point. Probably doesn't if Kenny doesn't get injured. Kitty Wright might get picked up out there gaming. It's possible. It's not completely an insane potential, I would say. All right. Well, we're going to get here to the end on this. I got to go grab some quick food here as we're coming back at 6 o'clock with the NFC West Roundtable. So the NFC West Roundtable is a different channel, separate of this channel. We do this every week over there. We just passed 5,000 subscribers over on that side of it. We're doing really good as far as the viewership. So you guys keep jumping in there, keep watching. It's very cool, I got to say, because our Roundtable show kind of started up as one of the youngsters as far as on the Roundtable network. And now we're almost just about at a place where we're just about doubling the view count of the AFC East, which has been their biggest roundtable show. So very cool of you guys out there for helping us push them up over the top. And please do come back in there and show up again tonight in there, as I know it's making the roundtable folks kind of scratch their head about. They're like, how are they doing so good out there? What? It's the second preseason game. They got 9,000 views after a day. What is going on? So props to you guys for showing up for that. And it's been very cool just watching the growth really explode over there on that side of it. I love working with those guys. It's been a hell of a time there too, in addition to all of it. But I'll be bouncing back over there at 6 o'clock Pacific Standard Time on the NFC West Roundtable. You do got to sub up. It's a separate channel, so you got to look at it over there. We're going to come back tomorrow, 12 o'clock, with your Seahawks weekly roundup. I'm going to be going through a little bit of the last of the Packer game, looking at where we're at with the cuts, looking if we signed anybody else, look across the league, see if maybe some guys I can identify and target who would be interesting guys for us to be taking a look at here over the next week and a half that the Hawks might be looking at kicking the tires on. So we got a Show tomorrow, we're going to be doing the Seahawks Syndicate at 6 o'clock. So 2 more shows coming at you tomorrow in addition to that. And then we got the B&B show on Thursday as well. So a lot lined up here over the next couple of days. Hope you're going to ride with me throughout this year as we're going to be doing a lot more shows than ever before. So a little more in and out, maybe a little bit shorter at times. I know we went 3 hours today, but you have to go 3 hours today if you got a cut down day. But we're going to be just locking and loading these shows over and over again. So I hope you're ready. It's on the back of also what I think is going to be a very, very good season here for your Seattle Seahawks and where they're going to go, where they're headed to, and the season that we're in for. I've been doing this for almost 6 years now, this channel, and I haven't really had a chance to really be able to follow a true, really good team. It's been more of that team that'll give you those moments and then step backwards and give you the moments and then step backwards, and you're kind of more middle-ish of the road. But I think this year is going to be finally the year where we're going to be legitimately good. We're going to be legitimately ready to make some noise. And does it mean we're going to the Super Bowl? I don't know. But I think you're going to be in for a year here where you're going to see much more solid, consistent play from the football team on both sides of the ball. You're going to see how this plan is coming together. You're going to see what is in the philosophy, the mind of this organization and front office of what they're trying to drive towards. It's going to be less about seemingly throwing things up at the wall and more about you're tactically going inch by inch in every step of the way in a purposeful manner. I really think that's where this team is going, where they're headed, and where they're driving towards, and why I also think it's only a matter of time before they ultimately find that great success on the back of this. So ride with me this upcoming season. Roll with me on this team. Let's see where this thing's going to go. I know some of you are a little bit thrown off by some of the way this roster looks. I know some of you are a little bit worried right now. Byron Murphy's going to be stuck in nose tackle hell once again for a full season. But I caution you yet. Give it some patience. Give it some time. We've got well over a week and a half here before our first NFL game. So it gives the team still some time to figure some things out, maybe make some moves. And like I've said too, John's sitting on $35 million. Never in John Schneider's entire time here as 15 years as a general manager has he ever had this amount of money that he has been sitting on at the end of training camp, this amount of cash that he can just go do whatever he wants to go do. Just, I could go buy this, I could buy that, I could go trade for this. So he still has a lot of that powder dry as hell. He's got just kegs of it sitting down there below the deck of Renton, that powder and dry. So still some things you can still go out there and do. We ain't set, we ain't finalized yet, but we're getting ready to make a lot of noise this upcoming season. I thank you guys for watching today. If you can for me, hit that like button. Get subbed on up as well if you can for me, as it does help out this channel tremendously and showing up on the algorithm on YouTube. You hit the like button, YouTube says, I'm going to push this channel for other Seattle Seahawks fans that are looking for Seahawks content. So it's a big deal when you do it. It helps the channel out, and we're trying to get over 20,000 subscribers. We got past 19,600 last week. We're motoring along inside of 400 away from that 20,000 mark. You can help us get there today by subbing up, and I really, really do appreciate it. You guys could be anywhere today. There are tons of channels doing a bunch of roster cuts and updates, but you were here with me, hanging with me here throughout the day. I thank you for that. That's very, very kind of you guys for doing that. We'll be back again here with the NFC West Roundtable at 6, and tomorrow, 12 o'clock, the Seahawks Weekly Roundup as well. So a lot of round coming at you over the next couple of days in it. I appreciate you guys watching. I do hope you guys are ready, though, for some big things this year. I hope I don't have to remind you about this team getting ready to make some big-time noise. But just in case, I'm going to do so anyway. Don't you ever forget. Go Hawks.